live. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are back here with the TBL. We are officially live with Season 12 as we're kicking off with a draft stream recap. It is I, your host, and now co-commissioner Finfin. I am joined here by one of our fantastic coaches and our only undefeated TBL coach, Addie. Addie, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't complain. It's a Saturday, I'm not working, and I live in a state where it's currently coldest weather right now is 55 degrees, so I'm happy.
Yeah, that's lucky you, isn't it?
You say that, and then when we get to the summer where it's 120 degrees, so, pick and choose.
Yeah, no, I guess that's fair.
But yes, we are here, and we are excited to bring to you the 12th season of the Twitch Battle League. A lot of amazing updates in terms of the league progressing and changing where we're going. Should be a lot of fun to dive into. I see some folks are already coming in to the stream, so welcome Joe, welcome Rotom. Appreciate you both for joining us.
They're both going to be incredibly disappointed after I roast the hell out of their drafts. Just kidding. Everyone has amazing drafts.
It
Just
will
kidding.
be interesting. I think that there are definitely some teams that the best way to put it is not my playstyle. If I have learned anything though in this is that any team with a coach can be made valid. To your point, you didn't think you had the best drafted team last time we were here, but you went undefeated and it wasn't even close. So you never know.
Yeah, well, it goes both ways, right? Like, a team can make a player and a player can make a team. Like, last season, I was very sort of intentionally drafting some pretty goofy stuff and ended up doing quite well with it. But I think that was just more of my building prowess and battling prowess as opposed to the team itself, or the draft itself, rather. But for example, my finals opponent, Tishan, I think he undisputably had the strongest draft in the entire league. And
Omnipod
he
was
had,
so evil.
well, it was Omnipom, but it was also like B tier Terapagos and stuff
Yes.
like that too. So, he was able to identify where you can get the most value in all of the tiers. And to me, that's where I sort of evaluate these drafts by is where are you finding the most value within the restrictions that you have. And
Absolutely.
obviously, someone who's able to do that at the nth degree will have a pretty easy ride this season.
Absolutely agree. And it also is fascinating to me to see how much over the last year or two Pokemon has changed and how we view some of these Mons, because there's a lot that when they were first rolled out, Mons were S tier, A tier, B tier, just because, oh man, they are completely broken. And as the meta has kind of evolved and changed, they've dropped 2, 3 tiers in some cases. Or on the flip side, there are some Mons that were not that valuable that now folks are realizing they have a lot of very strong, powerful uses.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true.
Well, pleasantries aside and some nice remembrance, let's go ahead and dive into some updates and reminders we have for the upcoming year. The conferences have officially been decided. In the Violet Conference, we are seeing the Venus Weedosaurs coached by Boyd, the Atlanta Talonflames coached by Talon himself. Then we have the Boston Red Rocks coached by Coach Pizza Box Joe, the London Shockwave coached by our own Addy, our Pallet Town Paladins coached by myself, which, guaranteed to face Addy again. I'm excited. That's not something I'm dreading. And then we have the other commissioner. Both commissioners ended up in the same conference as Goldoa, the New York Empoleons are in Violet. But on the flip side, in Scarlet, we do have a few of our new coaches, as we have the San Diego Pachirisus, coached by, I believe that is Rotom, and then Zach is coaching the Canadian Celluledges. So our two new coaches to the league playing there. We also have the Roman Polians coached by Coach Aaron, the Atlanta Victory Stars coached by Coach Play, Chicago Phalanx by my good friend Godbear, and of course we have the Virginia Victinis, which I believe is Coach Mike. I know Coach Mike has done TBL before in Summer League. I don't know if this is their first main season or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But
I mean,
either way,
hilariously, Mike is probably the coach I'm most familiar with because he was everywhere in some of the main leagues on YouTube in Gen 8 at least. So I'm excited to play him for sure. I'm excited to play a lot of people in these divisions. Like I think my last season, season 10, was had a slightly different roster than this one. Obviously, you
Yep.
still have some of the regular folks like you and Joe, or like Goldoa and Playmaker, Aaron as well. But otherwise, it's some new faces for me, which I'm particularly excited about.
I know Godbear was excited to see that you were in here because he's been wanting to face you since he's not done it before. You've been kind of like a myth in the shadows where he's always seen it, but he's not gotten to experience it firsthand.
Oh God. Okay.
No pressure or anything.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so those are our conferences. As the schedule plays out, there is going to be cross-conference play, but you are guaranteed to play everyone within your conference at least once. Now, a couple reminders and updates to the TBL. This is the first season that we are going to be playing at level 100. Goldo and I had a
Woo!
conversation around it, and with me coming in as a co-commissioner, one of the things that we talked about is some potential changes as kind of a bit of a passing of the torch, and that was one of the things that we had discussed. And so TBL will now be at level 100.
Yeah, I mean, I think my thoughts have been clear on this for a while, but ultimately, level 50 was such a uh, the reason level 50 ever existed in the first place is because I believe in older gens like Gen 6 and Gen 7, when you played singles Wi-Fi battles, it immediately went to level 50.
Yeah,
So
I
the
think it was
Wi-Fi draft
also
scene always had that, but um, that's changed, obviously.
yeah,
So
and I think
gotta
TBL
go
was
with
even
the
level
times.
50 back for Sword and Shield because for the ability to cast and record, those matches were also, I think, only leveled to
Right.
50 allowed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. So, I mean, yeah, I understood why it happened in the past, but since obviously those restrictions no longer exist, there's just a higher level of accessibility behind level 100. Not to mention that roles actually end up being a bit different. I mean, I don't think this will make any like absurdly tangible difference in like how we analyze these drafts, but it's worth acknowledging that in level 50 as opposed to level 100, damage rolls are about 2% higher for level 50 play, which can be significant. So, on level 100, for example, uh, certain bulkier mons might be a little bit stronger than they would be in level 50.
Yeah, it really is interesting, and it's just kind of I know part of the other thing that Golden enjoyed was what can we do to make TBL stand out to be different, and that was one of the things that he liked. Is he liked some of the calcs, he liked how it changed the game a bit, but ultimately, one of the things is just we know a lot of folks prefer level 100, and it helped bring some folks back, so we were very happy about it.
Absolutely.
Now, wanted to give a reminder on how scoring works in TBL because to that point of Gold wanting to make sure that TBL stands out a little bit differently, the scoring is different from most leagues. And the way that it works here is you not only keep track of your win-loss record, but you also, and the first tiebreaker, is going to be what your total points are on the year. So
Mhm.
if you get a win and the differential is 4-0 or better, you as a coach get 3 points. If the differential is 3-0 or closer, it is 2 points. If you lose, but you're able to make it a close match, which is 0-2 or better, you get 1 point. And if you lose 0-3 or worse, it's 0 points. So it really kind of changes the way you're in the game to where it's not a matter of, hey, I'm cooked either way, I'm just going to phone it in. It's a matter of, well, hey, if I can at least get one more Mon Dad or take out the next two or whatever it may be, I can get a point and still come out with something here. And I personally really enjoy that mindset with the point system.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because as someone who comes from the more like competitive, like hyper competitive, like tournament scene now, um, you know, it, it's really refreshing to come into a league that's mostly focused on content, really focused on, um, you know, a different style of play that I think, to your point earlier, separates this league from perhaps other leagues. And originally, I was quite skeptical of the point system. I'll admit where my opinions have changed, and the reason I was skeptical of it was because, I worried a little bit about how certain games could be manipulated or just for competitive purposes and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But ultimately, I don't think anyone in this league has those mentalities anyway. And then I also think at the same time, it definitely did add a different kind of stakes to certain games that maybe isn't the intention of the points, but I definitely found that like I if I found that I was likely gonna win, I just went for a win. I didn't really care how well I won. But if I felt like I was going to lose, um, I was playing to get the extra point as opposed to not get the extra point, which I think in turn made me make a couple crazier plays. So yeah, I don't know, like ultimately, and in those cases then I even got the comeback. So it's hard to say really like what is optimal, but I don't think it really matters. I actually think the most interesting aspect of the points is something you're probably going to bring up later, which is the calling your differential and then
Yep.
getting that number of points as well. I think that actually adds a whole other element to it because you could be down so many games and hedge all your bets on this one match, and anything can get turned around. And that's not something you get in a table that's purely determined by wins and losses. So it adds another layer of intrigue, I think, to the standings.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I do like about that is kind of what you alluded to with, the casting week, but also just because there are a way to get points even when you lose. In
Mm.
other leagues, it feels like, oh, we are 2/3 of the way through. I already know I'm done. I'm cooked. I don't feel that often with TBLs where like it's like I can always see, hey, there is a path for me to get back. It's still somewhat in my control if I can make some big plays, big calls, big reads, things of that nature. And to your
Yeah.
point, a huge factor of that is the differential week where, once again, every coach gets one. And all you have to do is before the match, tell the casters that you'll be using your diff week. And the way it works is whatever your differential is, that is the points that you will get. So if you win 6-0, you are doubling your points. You are getting 6 points.
Mm.
But on the flip side, if you lose 6, you lose 6 points. So it really never, as long as that's in play, nothing is guaranteed. You could at any
No, you're
point
You're
lose off.
absolutely
Yeah.
right, and I would think that, or at least I would hope that what that means in essence as well is that people won't give up, week 7, week 8, because there's always going to be an out.
Yeah.
And then I also think the other side of it too is like, but then also at the same time, like, funny enough, like I think there were 8 weeks last time. I went 8-0 in the season I competed in. I didn't get a single 3-point win. I'm pretty sure every single every
Yeah.
single win I got was 2 points, which is really funny. And I don't
You
think
you
you were
were
saying this. I think
undefeated,
I
but
think
you were not
I think
the
Goldoa
in
really
first
likes
place.
downplaying my success, and he was like, "Well, Addie's winning. Addie's winning a lot, but she's not winning big enough or whatever." And I'm like, I don't care. I'm winning. You know what I mean? So at the same time, I don't necessarily think that the point values should be reflective of how dominant your win is, because you can have a very dominant
Oh,
1-0
absolutely.
win or a very close 4-0 win. What they are reflective of are really fascinating win conditions that come near the end of the season. So,
Yes.
you know, if say I'm locked for playoffs, but the very last week I might be playing someone who needs to um,
Who needs to make a
4-0 me
comeback? Yeah.
in order to make playoffs. And I really don't want to play this player in playoffs, or maybe I want to, have the standings be a certain way by the end. Like, I don't have to play to win. I can play to, like, ensure that this opponent does not win 4-0 or better. So
Yep.
it creates some very interesting scenarios that go beyond just wins and losses. And hopefully that creates better content,
Yeah.
and maybe some more interesting sets as well.
I think it really does, and it really just changes the game week to week. And I like it 'cause I've never really felt like with there's always going to be one or two matches, but it feels like for the most part, you don't have very many where it's someone phoning it in saying, "Hey, I'm already done with the league for the last few matches. I'm not even going to try," kind of thing. We've not really had that for the most part, and I think that's really one of the upsides to the point system.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But with that said, this is a live casting league, and everyone has already been doing a great job of this, so thank you. But we are asking you to try and schedule your matches, assuming I could spell, schedule matches as early as possible so we can get casters for them, because the big goal is when you battle, we want people commentating, we want it to be live as best as we can. Um, and then with that, with us casting, because of Twitch's update to their retention policy, one of the goals is that we are going to be utilizing Twitch's YouTube channel more. So at the end of every week, I will be going through and uploading all battle videos to YouTube. They're not going to have any fancy edits. I'm sorry. They're just going to be raw footage uploaded. But that does also give you guys a source to where if you need access to the videos, we can do so if you're trying to do any sort of compilation. Because unfortunately, Twitch's retention has bit us before in the past, and they have actually cracked down even more lately. And so, to be
Really?
safe, videos will be uploaded to YouTube.
I really value that. That sounds really good. I mean, I think like as well, like season 10, I remember I think like the first 3 weeks are saved, and then like the
And
last
then we
playoff
lost them.
games are saved. So yeah, unfortunately, like it's easy for things to fall off in the middle of the season. So it's gonna be really exciting to see them all on YouTube. And I can even say that if I end up finding the energy for it, I might make a compilation of my games, um, for
It
for the end of the season.
should be a lot of fun. But those are the reminders that we did want to go over. But I think we're ready to take a look at the teams and what was drafted.
Let's do it.
All right, so first up, we have the Chicago Failing Draft by Coach Godbear. They had the first overall pick. Their
Mm.
team, in the order of picks, consists of Iron Valiant, King Lu, Petrunt, Serena, Empoleon, Latios, Scyther, the Dunsparce, Rotom Heat, and to round it out, we have Ditto. Now, as a reminder, these teams were sent blindly to a couple of folks I know in the Pokemon community. That some of them look at things very analytically, some of them look at them based off vibe, what they like, what they don't. I got some feedback, and based off that, we did a compilation of what were the pros, the cons, the things they like, the things they don't like, and where they got ranked. And this team got ranked second because some of the pros they like is that this team has a lot of synergy with momentum mixed with the bulk and recovery. So they can hit hard, use a momentum move, swap out, go into something that can take the hits, recover with it, as well as having decent hazard setters with decent removal blockers and punishers to keep the hazards up.
Yeah. So I sort of have a simultaneous thoughts on this. So ultimately, this is an incredibly common sort of core that we're looking at here. Like Tinglu Petrunt on its own has been a defensive core that I think the competitive sides of the community that I'm on, at least, you see very commonly. It's a very good sort of back wheel pick, which is where these guys were picked here. But what I will say is you typically see that combination on teams like Terra Tornadus, Meowscarada, right? So faster mons that have more pivoting ability. The thing that I personally don't fully see in Tinglu Iron Valiant is that Iron Valiant wants pivots for itself to come in. So I would think something like Landorus is maybe a bit of a stronger ground type pairing, and then rounding it out elsewhere. That's just a small little nitpick.
Yeah.
Basically, the point just being that Tinglu can be a momentum suck. That being said, Tinglu does have means to like sort of spike up and get momentum through Memento, but I don't think that's something you want to be relying on with Tinglu. So it ends up being the case that this is kind of a weird mix of two different metas that at least I've seen in the past, where you have the sort of more offensive pivots, things like the Latias plus the Iron Valiant to set up screens and Healing Wish into a strong sort of Calm Mind booster speed breaker, sort of Swords Dance options and things like that. Or you have the sort of slower, more balanced style where you have the slow momentum Petrunt into Life Orb Valiant as well. So this team, I think, does have ways to enable Valiant. I just think Tinglu isn't one of those main ways,
It's not the most
actually.
optimal.
I think Tinglu actually is probably more optimal as like an early game stacker, and then the rest of the mons can enable Valiant. Now, the only issue with that is that Tinglu covers a lot of really big weaknesses on this team. Notably, it's the only ghost weakness, or sorry, the only ghost resist, and realistically, it's the only dark resist as well. So the concern with this team, in my mind, is it might struggle to pivot into some of those ghost and dark types without losing momentum.
Yeah.
And that's just a small little nitpick that I think I have. That being said, I think there's a lot of ways that this team enables Valiant as the main breaker. And I also think that there's a few underexplored bonds here. Like, I've always been a big Serena believer. I think it's a really, really strong remover into a lot of ghost types that can just be knocked off.
Yep.
I would say Serena's best spin blocking the scariest mon that Serena has to face if it's trying to spin is Petrant, and that's not going to be a concern this season for obvious reasons, right? So I think Serena's quite good at removing here, which is nice. I think Terra de Dunsparce is really strong. And offers actually a second breaker. I wouldn't be surprised if this team was running sort of some Specs Terral normal boot and
Oh,
burst
absolutely.
sets or some sort of coil sets as well.
Coil, Calm
Um,
Mind. The Dunsparce is very versatile with how
yeah,
it can
really,
get through.
really strong setup mon, especially in a low tier format. And with kind of like the two best enablers in Latias and Petrant. Petrant obviously being able to parting shot and get momentum, and then Latias just being able to set up screens and healing wish. I think there's a lot of cool ways that Dunsparce can be enabled on this team as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, I like this team. Small little nitpicks, but I think it's a good team overall.
yeah, absolutely. The big things that I found kind of an issue with, I shouldn't say an issue, but things that I thought were cons were it feels like this team wants the T spikes better with how much bulk and recovery it has and potential pivot into, coverages. It feels like this team could really benefit from a Mon to not only set up the hazards, but also just get T spikes out there
Yeah.
just to really maximize those hazards. I don't love their top speed Mon being the Iron Valiant. I think this puts
Mm,
the team at the bottom third in terms of, speed in terms of that. So that being
interesting.
their top speed Mon, obviously there are ways to play around that, but it's just one of those, sometimes like to have that one just, over the top speed Mon that can potentially come in or help control the speed game if needed. And then I don't love some of the typing weaknesses overlap, like the core here of the Iron Valiant, the Tinglu, and the Latias. Holy fairy weakness.
Mm.
Uh,
I mean, I gotta push back a little bit against some of these cons because
Go for it.
while I do think this team has cons, like the T Spike setter obviously doesn't exist, but you have probably the mod that is most capable of getting random poisons at
Oh,
any time
absolutely.
in Pithra, right? And that on its own is probably just as effective as T Spikes, and it can't really be removed unless the mon dies. The top speed bond, I agree, is a concern. I think that's a major concern on this team, and something I actually probably should have pointed out earlier. And it's not just because that Valiant is the fastest mod and that's it. I think the bigger issue is that there's not a great choice scarf on this team. Like it could be Serena, but you want Serena to remove. It could be Scyther, but you probably want to dedicate your Terra to Scyther so that you don't get sort of murked by rocks. Um,
What do you mean there's no
it could be
great scarf
Ditto, I
Mon? There's a
guess.
Ditto right there.
I mean, yeah, but again, these aren't reliable mons,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're looking at sort of what the top six are, which I would say is, Valiant, the bulky core and Tinglu Petrant, Latias, Empoleon, and then either Serena or Dunsparce. Neither of those are really. None
Yeah.
of those mons are going to be great scarfers. The best one's going to be Serena, which again probably wants more flexibility than that, so it can remove more effectively. So, it's a question of like either I think a more effective Scarfer has to be picked up in free agency, or one of the top mons has to be benched every week to have that Scarfer. And I think the reason Valiant teams fall short, if they fall short, is because Valiant is too often forced out to revenge
Yeah.
when it wants to be used at the right time. You know what I mean? Like you want to hold that booster energy till it's the right time to use that booster energy. You want to bring Valiant in when it's time to break, not when it's time to revenge. So um,
Valiant for me has
you
always
want another
been
mon to do that role.
Yeah, Valiant for me has always been an interesting Mon that it feels like a fantastic booster Mon, but when it actually comes to, it can get
Mm.
forced out by a lot to where it just doesn't feel like it's maximizing that.
Exactly. And that the reason that happens is because it finds itself on teams where it lacks, another mon that can revenge. So for me, the best Valiant teams I've ever seen are teams where it's Valiant plus, say, Ogre Pontiel, where that's like the fast revenge option, or Valiant plus Iron Boulder, where Iron Boulder is really fast and can revenge. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, especially added by the fact that there's not much priority on this team too, outside of that Valiant. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, might see a lot of Ditto. The more I'm looking at it, like I
Is
think this team might see a lot of Ditto.
I can see that too. I'll be honest. Ditto for me is actually a plus on this team because when you get down towards those bottom last few picks, you're
Oh
looking at
yeah,
Mons that
yeah.
aren't going to come very often. But the thing that I love about Ditto is it forces your opponent to prep in a certain way, even if Ditto doesn't come. They can't have that setup sweeper Mon that can easily get revenge by a faster version of itself. And I like that
No,
for
Absolutely. I really like that too. And I'm not saying I think Ditto is bad by any means.
Oh
It's
yeah,
that you don't want to be forced to be that mon that comes every week,
yeah,
because as great as Ditto is, if you feel like it's predictably coming, you can make some sets that kind of, screw it over if it comes in, right? So because it's locked in, it has 5 PP, you can kind of craft a set that's a bit more, you know, that
but
takes advantage of that. So we'll see.
yeah,
I think it's a good mon though, and it effectively works on these sort of fatter structures as well.
I think it's a very good mon when it's used in the right context. Like you said, it can't come every week, but the fact that it's there as a threat, even when it's not coming, it's serving a role just by being something that has to be accounted for or planned for. So
Yeah,
I,
absolutely.
I think that's very interesting. But yeah, no, obviously a lot of these quote unquote cons, they are nitpicks. This was the second highest ranked team just because there wasn't a whole lot of major gaps or flaws. But I think we're in agreement that the biggest question at the end is going to be that over the top speed for this team.
Absolutely. Yeah, and its capacity to revenge, I
Yeah,
think, is the big question. Yeah.
no, great point.
Cool.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into the Rome and Polions. Rome and Polions had the second overall draft pick. This is by Coach Aaron. Their first pick was Ogerpon Teal. So the way we did Ogerpon is once one was selected, all went off the board. All Ogerpons were A ranked. Whoever took one just had to declare which version, and Aaron declared Ogerpon Teal. After that pick, they went Scizor, Zapdos, Uxie, Palafin, Artodon, Alolan Muck, Probopass, Gastrodon, and of course, Daspan.
Mm. Yeah, I gotta sort of say I like the team as this sort of momentum heavy, team with rocks and good priority. I think structurally it makes sense. Um, Especially just in terms of firepower. Like this Palafin is enabled immaculately right now because you have multiple pivots in order to bring in Palafin. You have spikes in that Ogerpon. You have good rockers. You even have poison being spread through things like Gastrodon and Poison Touch Muck. Yeah, really like how well the Palafin is enabled here. That being said, I don't necessarily know if this team is strong, and I know that's kind of a crazy like statement to make, but when I saw this Ogerpon sort of deal where it's okay, Ogerpon's gonna be unbanned and it's gonna be A tier, and okay, great. The last Ogerpon I expected to be picked up was Ogerpon Teal,
Yeah,
and the reason is because I just think as the SV meta has developed, Ogerpon Teal has become by far the weakest of the four Ogerpons. It just has so many mons in the meta that it is utterly useless against. So many fire types, Corviknight, you have a lot of poison types, you have a lot of fat steels, that it just really can't get past. So what Ogerpon Teal ends up being, at least again in the spheres that I'm seeing, if it's not Terra, I should say, is a mon that just kind of sets up spikes, clicks Encore, U-turns around, maybe clicks Leech Seed or Spiky Shield sometime, which is great, but I wouldn't pay A for that. I would
yeah.
I would maybe pay like C for that, especially as a round one pick. So really, like, it is all in on Palafin on this team to break. And Palafin is a mon that is very strong, and I would think you agree with me on this as much as you love Palafin. It will have some matchups where it struggles
Oh,
because
absolutely.
of certain fat waters, because of certain water immunities, because of obviously needing to get that baby form off as well. So you're losing momentum. Obviously, you have a lot of momentum to get back into it, but you're
Hmm.
losing momentum initially. Um, so I think when this team has matchup, it'll be great. But I think there will be a few matchups where it will struggle.
No,
And that's
I
just
would,
where I sort of perceive it.
I would absolutely agree. I mean, a lot of what you're calling out, I think this has a lot of the two big things that I think this team has is momentum and priority. I mean, we've got a Palafin, a Scizor, both with two of arguably the best priority moves, revenge that there is between the Technician Bullet Punch and the Palafin's insane attack with a Jet Punch. So that's really good. It's got a lot of bulk, but the big thing for me here is to your point, there are going to be matchups where Palafin just kind of gets walled, and I think that's because what I feel like this team is missing is a natural rain setter. Like this feels like a rain team to really
It
amplify
can
the
be, yeah,
Palafin, but
yeah.
it's not getting that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually I do agree with that. I would actually almost argue like it would be really. I think this team would have been so much cooler if it was Ogerpon Wellspring plus Palafin, which sounds
Yes.
counterintuitive, but
No. Yeah.
you have Ogerpon Wellspring to set spikes and get strong damage off. You have Palafin here, right? And you just have two strong water types, plus the Archaludon, plus the Zapdos, and like a fucking Scizor plus Politoed or Scizor plus Pelipper, and I think this team would be incredibly strong. But
Genuinely with.
unfortunately, like because it's Pontil, you don't have as much firepower,
Yeah.
and obviously you don't have the rain to boost.
When I first saw this, but the first thought I had was I would have taken Ogerpon Wellspring because then you get the Water Absorb. I think getting a Mon
Hmm.
that has immunity to water on a rain team is really huge just to help prevent your
Hmm.
opponent from taking advantage of your rain. So I would have
Yeah.
probably gone with Wellspring, and then instead of Gashadon, I would have potentially gone with, say, Politoed, and then maybe
Yeah.
got a low tier ground type. But
Yeah,
that's
I
just
mean you don't really need a ground type like
no.
that's absurdly high tier on a team like this because you have so much offensive pressure and against opposing electric types of which there are very few in this generation. You have the Archaludon, right? So I don't think it's super necessary to get something above D tier as far as like any kind of ground type goes.
Yeah.
That being said, I think he relatively recognized that with the team that he has, but yeah, I struggle to get behind the overall sort of lack of power behind this team. And it's not that some of these mods aren't capable of being powerful. It's that they don't have their full potential of power being brought out, through the support of the
Yeah.
team. Um,
I would agree. The other thing that I think is going to be
yeah,
interesting to see around, because here's the one thing I will say: Aaron is
yeah,
absolutely a coach I have a lot of faith in to make things work and to put in work with these teams
absolutely.
just based off the experience. But the things that I'm not loving with this is Scizor feels like it needs to be one of your heavy hitter attack mons, but it's also your only hazard removal, and I worry that that's going to really allow hazards to kind of punish here, especially because you have
Mm.
potential teams that can wall the Ogerpon, wall the Palafin, wall some of these plays that you're forced to pivot, and so they can get hazards up. They can force you naturally to just take that damage over time.
It's a bit awkward because I think on rain teams, hilariously, I actually think the best remover you can have on a rain team is Iron Treads, which
Yeah.
is obviously, I don't know if that would have been possible under this
If I
tier
wanted,
list,
if I would have taken it, possibly.
but the reason is not because like it's a ground type. It's because it removes and it also keeps momentum,
Yes.
and it also pivots out on a lot of the mons like Fat Waters and stuff like that you already want damage and chip on. Um,
That's part of the reason why I love Fortress on rain teams, because it gets that, and then
yes.
it having the Volt Switch, really underrated.
But the other facet to me is this team very clearly wants to hazard stack, in my opinion, right? Like, say you're going up against a fucking Slowbro, right?
Yeah.
And you really want to slowly reduce Slowbro throughout the course of the game through, flip turn Palafin, and, then you bring Zapdos in, and then they bring their Zapdos check in. And, the way that you're going to gain progress against that is through hazards. However, hazards are also going to rack up against you. So you have to play this sort of game where you can't have it one way or the other. You have to defog and either have no hazards or have hazards on both sides if your opponent is tackling this team properly. And you don't want to be forced into that position. You want to have a team structured in a way where you can hazard stack and you can have zero hazards on your team. So basically what I'm saying is rapid spin's better than defog. And the other reason I'm saying that is because Scizor is supposed to be gaining momentum this game.
Yep.
Every single time Scizor clicks defog, it is not gaining momentum with this team. So there's a bit of tension there that I'm not particularly keen on, especially again when you need to be using every turn to your biggest advantage to bring in some of your heavy hitters. And I think the reality of things actually is going to be that we're going to see a lot of boots on this team. I think we'll see a lot of boots Scizor. I think we'll see a lot of boots
I can see that.
Palafin. I think we'll see a lot of Boots Zapdos, obviously. I don't think Scissor's going to want to be running Defog very often. And the downside to everything running Boots is they're not going to have boosting items, which means Palafin's going to be weaker, Zapdos is going to be weaker. And they are probably. I mean, yeah, I mean, they're probably just not going to hit as hard because of that, are they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll
So
be
I don't know. I
interesting.
don't know.
Yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
curious to see how this plays out. The last
Yeah.
things that I worry about, I mean, we called it out with Godbear's team, but I have to absolutely call it out here. Ogerpon being the fastest mon does give me some worry in terms of the speed tiers for this. They
Hmm.
do have priority to help kind of counter that a little bit, but you have a bulky water type. The priority on this team is walled in a lot of
Well,
cases.
let me offer another option is if you are a fast setup sweeper with the open Terra, right? It's
Yeah,
open Terra in this league, right? And
yep,
and it's not Terra preview from what I remember.
correct.
So you obviously don't know what your opponent's Terra type is going to Terra into. So if it's some kind of Dragon Dance Mon with Terra Water, and it just completely stops all your priority options. So then it means that you have to start being Choice Scarf Ogrepon, which means you're not spike stacking as well, or it means you're not, uh, or it's just weaker. It's also just not good. I don't think Choice Scarf Ogrepon's very good either. So
Not without
yeah, I don't
Terra.
know. Yeah, not without Terra. So
Yep.
yeah, yeah, really interesting.
The thing I'm very curious about is just because Aaron likes these bulky Terra captives, because he has proven in the past that he can use Uxie offensively,
Mm,
and Probopass just kind of being a wall. I'm very curious to see how this gets used, because I think those mons can
mm.
get very annoying in some good hands. But yeah, I'm really this is probably the team I'm most curious to see how it plays out, just because I really love rain teams, and this feels so close yet
It
so
feels like a
far from
non-rain
rain
rate
teams
team.
that I like. And so I'm curious to
Yeah,
see, okay, how does this variation of it go? I mean, obviously,
it
no rain set. I
it's
can't know
really
if I should say it's
funny.
the rain
Yeah.
team.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, clearly he's going in a different direction with it, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think the Terra captains, I guess we never touched on. Like, I think Probopass or Probopass comes, it's for like what Terra Ghost and then spin blocking. But with Yuxi, I actually think Terra Yuxi has a lot of flexibility. Like a Terra Vesper, it's always been known as one of the really strong low tier Terra types. I don't see why Yuxi would be any worse because it obviously has nasty plot. It has very very interesting offensive sets. It has that mystical power move as well. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think it's a very interesting. I think Terra Yuxi is one of the more interesting Terra captains for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So be interesting to see. But let's go ahead and jump into the third team. We have the Boston Red Rocks, and they end up picking third on the draft. They started off with Terapagos, and one of the main things that Joe said is he wanted to make sure that Mon did not fall to you.
Yeah,
um,
fair
but
enough.
But following that, we had Enamorus Caldeo, which was a kill leader, I think, just last year, and it set some pretty high records.
Hmm.
Jirachi was then taken, Hydreigon, Rhyperior,
Hmm.
Cincino, Bramblegast, Zebstrika, and of course, Kanto Weezing to round it out. After ranking, this team ended up coming in 8th out of the 12. Big
Hmm.
things that were noted is that this team probably has the upper end in terms of options of hard-hitting special attack mons between the Enamorus, the Keldeo, the Hydreigon. Jirachi gives you options, Terapagos, both with setup and just potential options
Hmm.
with this team. They have a lot of physical defense bulk. They have variety mons in terms of attack because they have a lot that can be physical but aren't reliant on it. So a lot of variety with this team because you have mons that you normally say, oh, Hydreigon's normally going to be special, but it does have physical options, and so there's a lot of mons on this team that can do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little controversial here.
Go for it.
I think this team has the strongest top six of the teams we've looked at so far. Um, I think it's a very dominant top six, actually. At least again, I can only speak from what I've seen in the tournament scenes and things. Is Terapagos, Keldeo, Hydreigon is a very proven core offensively. They really pressure each other's sort of weaknesses very well. It's very momentum heavy. Uh, Keldeo plus Hydreigon are both really strong scarfers, so they take pressure off each other in that regard. Jirachi is a great partner for those three because of screens, Healing Wish, as well as being a good scarfer in its own regard. Rhyperior, devastating Terra Captain, probably one of the strongest Terra Captains on the board, and something that is very effective at simultaneously sort of staying a ground type because of Lightning Rod, while
Mm-hmm.
also having that flexibility to become any typing. So things like Terra Flying Rhyperior, Terra Fairy Rhyperior are all very, very strong. Um, you might look at a team like this and say, okay, there's too many special attackers, but there kind of isn't because you have Secret Sword on Keldeo, and you have obviously the contrary superpower sets on Enam. I really like this as a top sort of 6 offensive combination because they're all mons that have sort of a bulky profile, but they're always going to hit hard and force progress, and I would be very terrified to face this top 6. Now, where the criticism to me comes in is the bottom 4. I think the bottom 4 are relatively weak. I think, you know, this is a team that really wants to be gaining momentum. I think Weezing is a big momentum suck. I actually think Bramblegast is also kind of a big momentum suck. You have 2 mons in Zebstrika and Cinccino, which relatively do the exact same thing as each other, which is be fast and click, a momentum move. So there's not a lot of, additional help there. So when I think about like low tiers that I want to put on a team of a really strong top 6, I think about things that I don't really have yet as far as roles or as far as certain type advantages. And I don't mean that you have to checkbox every type. I just mean, is there a certain offensive piece that might glue well if one of your top 6 doesn't have a good matchup. But then the other thing this team really wants is something like spikes and removal. And well, I guess that is Bramblegast. I don't know if Bramblegast is good.
Yeah, you've got
a good mon.
Your hazard removals are Terraphagos, Bramblegast, and Cinccino.
Yeah.
But Cinccino has the same issue with the defog of your hazards on their side then go away too.
I also got a question. Did Joe have points left over? Because this team just on paper seems like these bottom mons could be higher tier. I don't know. Maybe I'm
Joe
crazy.
has 40 points left over.
Or was Jirachi A? Or was Jirachi B? I don't even know.
Jirachi was A. But Joe had 40 points left over at the end.
Yeah. So I think Joe can maybe upgrade one of these guys into something a little bit more forcing. But yeah, I don't really agree with like some of these cons here. Like I don't see why this team has a SPDF weakness. It has Jirachi, which is an incredibly good SPDF wall. It has a couple good AV users.
So usually when that comment's there, they don't take AV into account because one of the things is they don't like the idea of having to force sets to come regularly to kind of check it. And the main thing here is you've got Jirachi, which is one wall. Then it's Terraphagos. After that, you have a lot of potential weaknesses. But the bigger issue for me with this is that the typings overlap in terms of weaknesses, and I also don't love the fact that they're only poison types Weezing, which means they have no grounded poison type unless they bring neutralizing gas Weezing, at which point that then means they have 4 or 5 ground weaknesses and limited options to come in on that.
Yeah, I'm convinced this Weezing is on the team because Joe was terrified of having a ground weakness for some reason. I don't think this team is ground weak whatsoever, even without the Weezing. I think you take your 40 points and upgrade Weezing into a stronger grounded poison. I actually think Weezing's probably the weakest member on this team because this team is so focused on keeping momentum and bringing in hard attackers, and Weezing is the definition of a momentum suck. So I think Weezing doesn't fit on this team at all. It's really awkward. But as far as overlapping weaknesses, I'd be curious what types in particular.
So they have 4 weaknesses to ice with only 2 resist.
Yeah.
They have 4 weaknesses to fighting with only a handful of resist. They have 4 weaknesses to ground with only 1 resist, 1 immunity. And so there's a lot, and part of the issue with that is some of the mons that are checks to those are the same checks. So, for example, their ice checks are Jirachi and Keldeo, which kind of overlap in terms of being Jirachi the flying resist that they need. And so that's kind of where it's at, where they saw a larger disparity in terms of weaknesses with a lot more reduced options to cover. So if you face a strong ice type, strong ground type, strong fighting type, you're forced to bring more mons that you may not normally.
Well, I definitely don't agree with ground because you have Enam, Hydra, and Bramblegast, and Wheezing. So that's
Yep.
4 resist slash immunes. You have Terra Flying Rhyperior, which is arguably its best Terra type.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying about ice types. Ice weaknesses are generally one of those things that look scarier on paper than reality because there's so few actually ice types that exist in the first place that are offensively scary. But my pushback against that would be that, again, Keldeo plus Jirachi are going to come every single week. You're going to always have Jirachi and Keldeo on your team every single week, right? So you're going to naturally have those checks. Um,
So,
I
Joe, I do see
guess
you in the
I don't know.
chat
I don't
saying that
know.
you don't have 40 points. I'm curious where you think the math's wrong, because even when I manually calc it in, the mons you have left over, you have an A tier Jirachi, which is 180. You've got the B tier. Let me go take a look again at the teams, because the sheet is showing you with 40, so we'll have to go figure out why that is. So apparently Joe does not have any points left over, but the sheet's
Hmm.
showing him having 40.
Interesting.
So,
Well, I think my point still stands. I think Cinchino and Substrika both don't need to simultaneously exist. I think it's one or the the and then I think Bramblegast is fine. I just think it's a bad mon. Wheezing, I
Bramblegast to
think, can
me,
be a
it needs
poison type
Terra,
with a bit
otherwise it's
more,
not good.
upgrade. Yeah, I don't know, like, because it's not going to spin block very effectively. To me, it can set up spikes, click a Poltergeist, and then die, which I guess is what this team needs, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Because he
the only
doesn't
time,
need to remove.
yeah, the only time I've really ever really liked Bramblegast has been as a Terra, because then you can give it Terra fighting, and there's really almost no checks for Ghost and fighting as a combo.
Yeah, I know, that's really strong. That sounds like a really strong combination.
But yeah,
Yeah, no, but I actually like this team as much as I've criticized the bottom four. Like, I think these top four are a lot stronger than teams are giving it credit for. And the thing about Terapagos as well, because Joe's right, if Terapagos fell to me, I would have scooped that shit up. Um, the thing about Terapagos as well is that it doesn't really matter how weak to a particular setup threat you are because you have a Terapagos. So you have a little bit more flexibility to play openly with your offensive pieces and not really worry about patching every single defensive hole
that's
because you
fair.
have a Terapagos that is always going to revenge any mon at all, unless it's like fucking a Mold Breaker
Mold
setup guy.
Breaker, or
So,
the only knocks I've really ever
I don't
had
know.
for with using Tropicos is unless you lead it, it has to be boots. Kind of similar to that with you have with Dragonite, to where
But who
unless you're
gives a
gonna
shit? Because it's strong, it's so good. Like, who cares? And actually, with Bramblegast, it doesn't even need to be because you have that second remover. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
the only thing I don't necessarily like is is the one downside with Bramblegast being a hazard removal is Bramblegast as a spinner does get blocked by a ghost type if the ghost type just doesn't bring an item.
Yeah, no, I'm not advocating that Bramblegast is like the quintessential spin blocker here. I'm just saying there might be games where, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know, the opponent doesn't have a ghost type or something like that, where maybe because, for example, recently I think Scarf Terapagos has been making actually some really interesting has had
interesting.
some really interesting games from what I've seen
I'd be very
in
curious to
sort of
see
late
those.
game games. So yeah, those have been really interesting, and then obviously some rock polish, power herb, meteor beam sets have been strong in the early game, but I think some people have been toying with them in the end game again. But with those, you're pairing them with either a defogger like a Mandibuzz or something, or you're getting a second thing removal. So a lot of flexibility with Tropicos. I actually think it's a mon that is very unexplored even this late into this generation in terms of things it can do.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of these new
I
mons that
have
are doing that.
yeah, yeah. So I have a lot of faith in this team, maybe more than whoever put this at eighth. But I think if you really fix these bottom four to sync better with the top six,
Yeah,
I think this team can go a long way.
it'll absolutely be interesting. I do like the big thing for me here is it feels like this team has a lot of variety options. You can't consistently
Oh
plan
yeah,
one way or
yeah.
another, and I think that's going to be the biggest selling factor. If you can drive that team well, I think it'll be very successful. But if you can't, then it'll kind of run into it, because a lot of coaches, you'll see Hydreigon or they'll see Enamorus and say, hey, the most optimal play is I need to go into its special attack, but its physical attack is still good enough that you can play into that as well, and I think that variety gives it options.
Also, like unlike Team One, this team has like 4 or 5 viable Scarfers. So you have so many different revenge options. You have so many different mons that you can use as your breaker, right? You could be revenging Kelio, breaking Enam, and maybe set up Jirachi. You can be set up Keldeo, scarf Jirachi, and breaking Enam. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
you have so much flexibility with what roles all of your mons can actually be in, and this is again why Jirachi, Hydreigon, and Keldeo has been such a tried and true combination in some of these high end leagues that I've witnessed is that they're just very unpredictable because they take that pressure off of each other to fulfill certain roles,
I
so you
just
can
want
use each one to your full potential.
I just want Joe to know that I will be counting how many times you bring Scarf Iron Head Jirachi, and I will be judging you based off that.
Yeah,
But no, I think this one has the most variety and no, the most variation in terms of where I could see it finishing just based off how the play is going to be. But I do agree. I feel like reworking the last four
yeah.
Mons will go a long way because just looking at this, the one thing that I feel like this team needs, they need that solid grounded poison type and a more consistent maybe hazard rule, just so that way
I'm
it's not
curious.
Terapagos or Bramblegast every week.
Yeah, I want to see what's on the board, but yeah, no, you're right. Like, I think there's got to be some. I mean, hilariously, like, I even think like maybe this is crazy, but oh god, is Weezing? What tier is Weezing? Is Weezing a Weezing's
Weezing
a
I think
fucking
is D tier. Maybe
Weezing
let
is
me
E tier
check.
actually, which is kind of
Oh,
funny,
E
but I still
tier.
think it's bad on this team. It's really the truth. I mean, it's pretty low for Weezing, but I still think it's not that great. Anyway, yeah,
Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the next one, which is going to be the Commissioner, Goldoa's New York Empoleons, drafting
yeah, this
fourth.
team's terrible. No, I'm kidding.
Drafting fourth, it got a rank of third. They led off their pick with Meowscarada, which is a new addition to the S tier mons, and it wasted no time in terms of getting picked. Following that, we had Iron Hands, Iron Moth, Donphan, Primarina, Skarmory, Terra Frostmoth, Terra Staraptor. In my opinion, two of the most terrifying Terra combos in the league this so far. Iron Boulder and Spidops.
Yeah, I think this team is really boring, but I think this team is really good. Like to me, this is not a team that has been very innovative. Like this is a team that has a lot of tried and true combinations. Meowscarada plus Iron Moth, very commonly seen, very strong sort of offensive combination. Uh, Iron Hands obviously cores well in a lot of different teams. I've seen it work very well in Meowscarada teams because of its ability to sort of break for Meowscarada games in the end game. And then you sort of have the bulkier core of Skarmory plus Donphan plus Primarina, all sort of just can pretty much check anything with those three. And then you have the Iron Boulder, which I actually like on this team a lot because it takes pressure off of Meowscarada to not have to run like scarf sets like that. Teams with Meowscarada struggle. Teams with Meowscarada that struggle because they constantly feel like Meowscarada needs to like revenge
Yeah,
+1 setup mons, and the fact that Boulder can do that instead is really nice. It frees up Meowscarada to run a Choice Band, which I think is its strongest item when it has the freedom to run it, or just be a Boots pivot, right? Um,
Boots Pivot,
if
Life
Goldoa ever runs like
Orbs, Hazard
Sash
Stack.
Spikes, he'll
Yeah.
I would kill him. But like otherwise, like yeah, Meowscarada is such a strong mon. Um, I guess Terra Captain's pretty good. I've heard Terra Frostmoth is really strong. I've never seen it in practice. Spite Ops forces a lot of prep with the boots and things, and Terra Staraptor, I'm sure, is a really strong breaker. So I don't have a ton of big comments on this team. I
Yeah,
mean,
the big thing for me is I don't like
pretty straightforward.
Spidops without having a removal blocker or Punisher. That to me is
Mm.
probably the one thing because it feels like Spidops' main purpose. Hey, I'm going to set up hazards, and you have Skarmory, which can set up hazards. That feels like it's a big role that it can fill, but you don't have anything in terms of a way to punish defog or a way to block spin without having to Terra first.
Yeah, I mean, what's kind of funny actually is like, I guess this wouldn't work based on how the points went, but a mon that I actually think would be a very good Terramon on this team is Donphan. And it's not because I think Donphan's an inherently good Terramon, but because like Terra Ghost Donphan on this team would kind of go hard with how much
Right.
hazard stack you have.
It is an
Uh,
option they can do.
and well, so that could be something to consider. Otherwise, just turning that I think Staraptor is probably the most unnecessary part of this team. I don't think it gives anything that the team sorely needs. So if you sort of look at either getting a ghost type in D tier, like I think, let me take a look. Like Poltergeist is actually a decent spin blocker because it has that weak armor to then pressure like the treads and the tusks of the
Not only that,
world.
but it has solid recovery options as well to punish.
Yeah, solid recovery options too. But there's Mismagius as well as a very strong spin blocker, and a really strong Terra captain as well. Mismagius would go insane on this team actually. Goldo should definitely put Mismagius on this team over Staraptor. So yeah, I think a couple small adjustments that can be made. You're absolutely right to say that there's no spin blocker here, and I definitely think this team would be even stronger without one. That being said, like this team is very tried and true,
Yeah,
and it's very hard to say anything negative about some of the defensive pieces or the offensive pieces.
yeah. The only things that were really called out were just the lack of those blockers. Then there's a lot of overlap in terms of the speed tiers, just because you've got three Mons all very close at the top, and then there's a huge gap because I want to say between Staraptor, it goes from Staraptor down to Skarmory, so there's like a huge 30-point gap in terms of the speed. So it really does
Yeah.
allow your opponent to then kind of play around, knowing, hey, I don't need this much speed, I can put more here on my mid-tier Mons, things of that nature.
See, the thing about that is it depends on how big Goldoa's balls are. Because if his balls are really big, what he would do is he would speed creep the speed creeps and run Adamant on his Staraptor, run
Yeah,
Adamant on his Iron, or Modest on his Iron Moth, and then all of a sudden that weakness turns into a strength.
it absolutely can.
What I will say about the speed tier thing, because I actually, in the last 2 years, since I think I've found my footing in draft, one of the biggest changes I've made is I've stopped caring too much about speed tiers, and the reason is that that reason I just mentioned, where you can take advantage of how your opponent speed creeps, but secondly, that actually having similar speed tiers offers flexibility. You heard what I said about Meowscarada
Boulder, yeah.
and Iron Boulder. Is like, while obviously you have two mons at the same speed tier, you can commit one to revenging, say, a 115 base speed setup mon or Scarfer, um, and you can commit the other to being a more offensive piece, right? So
No,
it creates flexibility where you didn't have it otherwise.
I would absolutely agree. I think my issue is just more with the fact that where there's like you have that overlap on the top, but it's just the bottom to where you've got base 60, base
Yeah,
68, base 60,
yeah,
50, and that
yeah.
that's more
No,
where it's
you're absolutely right, and Goldoa very well might face a Chiyu or a fucking, I don't know what's a base 100 mon. Keldeo. Is a mon that definitely runs modest against this team, I think. Or potentially what, like base 90, 80 mon. I'm not sure. Hydra would run modest against this team. It'd be scary, right? But um, I don't think it's the end of the world either. I just think it's
no,
maybe a bit of an annoyance.
it'll be interesting. And a lot of these are nitpicks. In all honesty, these are not full on to
Yeah,
say,
it's,
oh, the
it's
teams are
okay.
terribles.
It's alright.
Yeah,
Are
the
these
only
are these your nitpicks, or are they the nitpicks from the anonymous like panel of experts?
some of these are mine. Some of these are mine. Some of these are based off of their feedback.
Got it. Cool. All right. I'm
Genuinely,
so excited to see what mine are.
to try and keep things consistent, I try to
Yeah.
make sure that we had at least 4 positives and 3 quote unquote comments.
No, that
Is what
makes
we did.
sense.
So
I
some of
agree.
the if some of these feel like they're kind of okay, maybe a little. It's usually because I was trying to fill one in just so that way we'd have something to fill the screen.
Yeah. No, it
Okay.
makes sense.
Taking a look at the Atlanta Victory Stars by Coach Playmaker. This team was rated the fifth overall pick, rated towards the lower end, and there were just a lot of different things that were not necessarily liked, but there are also some things that were. First pick was Garchomp, followed by Cinderace, Corviknight, Hisuian Zoroark, Clefable, Raikou, Terra Umbreon, Necrozma, Virizion, and then Terra Araquanid. There was some interesting play on this one in the first time because at first they had originally planned to pick Great Tusk, and then at the very last second after submitting the pick, they switched it before Addy could get hers in and took Garchomp
Okay.
instead, which then allowed Addy to get Great Tusk, and so now we're all pissed at play.
Yeah. Actually, this is so funny because anyone who knows anything about me knows that my specialty is actually Gen 8 Draft League as opposed to Gen 9 Draft League. This team looks like a Gen 8 Draft League team.
Yep.
I mean, just like this team literally looks fresh out of Sword and Shield. It's unbelievably funny, especially like 8 mon Sword and Shield because you see Garchomp, Cinderace, Corviknight, like crazy. And then Cosmo is obviously such a staple in that tier as well. So Raikou, Clefable, yeah, Jesus Christ, very strange. Because yeah, the top six is literally Fresh Out Sword and Shield. It's a very good Sword and Shield combination. And I actually think this team is better than it's being rated. Because you have really strong screen setters on this team in Corviknight and Raikou into very strong setup pieces in Necrozma, Garchomp, and even Cinderace. So while this team might struggle a bit with, um, playing a long game, which looks kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you see Corviknight, you see Clefable, yeah, maybe sure. I actually think this team's going to be very effective at just getting screens up, setting up sword stands, and busting through the team, and then maybe taking 3 Mons, and then Clefable comes in, clicks some attacks, clicks Healing Wish, brings in another Mon, and then something else comes in. At least to me, that's how I would use this team. And I don't know if Playmaker has the same concept, especially with some of these later Mons that have been picked up. I mean, Terra Arachnid definitely supports that agenda, but yeah, to me, this actually deceptively looks like a very offensive team. Maybe Playmaker disagrees, but that's how I definitely would use it.
Yeah, I think the big things that we're seeing as Nox, where outside of the screenplay that you're talking about, there are some elements that feel like the synergy is counter, where you have the desire to set up hazards and things like that, but the 2 hazard removals you have don't support that. So you've got Cinderace with Court Change, Corviknight with Defog, so your webs, your rock setters, anything like that kind of take that away, and so that's kind of one downside. Again, kind of going back to it, they don't have a ton of that over the top speed. They do have a lot of really good Scarfers, but they've got those large speed gaps. And then on the physically defensive side, you do have the Necrozma, you do have the Umbreon, and you do have the Corviknight, but outside of that, it gets towards the frailer side somewhat quickly without potential set. But the screens play itself, I think you're absolutely right.
I think screens is very strong here, and the conflicting hazard removal was actually a very good point, not something I considered. But the reason I didn't consider it is because I was viewing this team as offensively as I am.
Yeah.
If Playmaker is viewing this team as a, let's sit on the opponent and click U-turn with Corviknight and then go into the Clefable and take 45%, then click Soft Boiled and go back into the Corviknight, and let's just cycle that and repeat, and then we'll just happen to bring in our offense when it's opportunity to do so. Yeah, hazards aren't going to be really that effective or meaningful. And you're probably going to want to remove them more than you're setting them, right? But if it is a more offensive game with Arachnid, who gives a fuck about Defog Corviknight? Click webs, beat boots on a couple guys, and just fucking go at it. So I think it depends on how Play wants to use this team. And it is possible that there might be matchups where taking the defensive approach is going to make sense here, but I wouldn't rule out the fact that you have 3 incredibly strong setup pieces in Cinderace, Garchomp, and Necrozma here. Really, and strong speed too. Yeah, really strong fast guys.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they end up getting played or used with that. So yeah, I'm very curious. The one downside with, like you talked about the setup, Necrozma might be the only real setup special attacker. I don't really see a whole lot. You could do with Raikou, but it feels like there's a lot of Mons that could potentially wall that.
Yeah, Raikou's an interesting one, right? Because you have Raikou's always been kind of getting shafted throughout the fucking years because it got that Scald, right? But it lost hidden power. And what I will give credit for Raikou in is that or with this team is that one of Raikou's highest tier ground types that it's difficult for it to deal with is Garchomp. Obviously, Playmaker has Garchomp, so it's a bit more freed up. But grass types, it really hates dealing with grass types. So that's why I sort of see it as a more effective screener than anything else. And it's not necessary for it to be like this fast option because the fast option is Cinderace, right? So yeah, I see what you mean. I don't necessarily think it's the biggest deal in the world because you can still run Calm Mind, Life Orb, Fable. You can still run, Hisuian Zoroark. You got Hisuian Zoroark like hidden behind a Garchomp. You're going into your physical attacker, and then all of a sudden you get hit by a fucking Specs, Zoroark. That's gonna be me. I'm fucking terrible with facing Zoroark. So, like, I get it.
Zoroark's gonna be
But
really interesting just in general because I
yeah,
think Play has used it before and has shown strength in using it. But it's
very
just
strong
gonna
on.
be kind of interesting to see what it is,
Yeah.
and what the ultimate long term is. My only worry with the screen offense is it does feel like there are ways that that can be punished or countered, especially if it's something that's brought repeatedly. You bring a red card mon, force things out.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about going for a win right away though.
Yeah,
It's about claiming two or three mons in exchange for one mon, right? You set up screen, you turn out, you go into your Garchomp, you click Sword Stance, you click Earthquake, you click Scale Shot, and maybe it takes a couple mons to take it down, but you force more progress than they forced against you.
nope,
But you're right,
absolutely
it
valid.
can be predictable after some time, which is why I like the fact that Clefable plus Corviknight could have some flexibility. I have one clarifying question: is Baton Pass allowed in this with Dry
Dry,
Pass?
dry.
So that's another facet that gives this team a lot more momentum. Is obviously Clef doesn't have teleport in this gen, but
It
slow
does get
baton
baton
pass is
pass.
just
Yep.
as good. And same with Umbreon. Umbreon as well gets that
Yeah, and those were two of the
capacity.
big things that
So,
were really highlighted as a strength for this is they have really good wish baton pass users between Umbreon and Clefable that they can.
Wish is so interesting actually because if you're running like a bulky Garchomp or something, or say you're using Araquanid to check like Keldeo, for example, you have a lot of sustainability with this team if you do want to run it fat. I wonder if this is I don't know. I've never been good with fat play styles this gen, but I know it does work. So,
Uh,
we'll
It,
see.
it'll be interesting. I think play will be definitely be able to kind of utilize this more, um,
Hmm.
and so just kind of be curious to see where it all comes out. What I will say is that this is a very comfortable, familiar team for Playmaker. The first two picks were the same first two picks that they had last year, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it
Um,
makes sense.
and a lot of mons that we've seen play use a lot. Um, I think the biggest thing that kind of knocked this one was just more the initial view of the typing synergy of having two of the best removal options that are consistent while also having mons that feel like they want to set up the hazards or trying to go for the control. But I think that that can be played around depending on what your play style is for the game.
Yeah, I agree.
But up next, we have the sixth pick with the Virginia Victinis, coached by Wreck-It Mike. Sixth pick, we're given the first place draft ranked. Their team in order of picks consists of Tornadus
Wow.
T, Urshifu Single Strike, Excadrill, Terra Deancy, Latios, Milotic, Toxtricity, Decidueye, Skeldridge, and Hippowdon. Because no S
Mm.
tier was taken, they have three Terra captains in Diancie, Skeldridge, and Decidueye.
Interesting. First draft rank. Let me analyze this to see how people are considering this. So strong speed tiers, I definitely agree with. You have a lot of decent scarfers on this team. Actually, quite a few decent scarfers in that Latios, that Urshifu, and that Toxtricity. First for single strike, I've never been a fan of this gen.
I,
And this is
I'm a
again
believer
speaking
that's.
from
I've never understood
it,
why Rapid was rated lower than Single Strike. I always thought Rapid was the better one.
I think Rapid's better in general. I do. The reason I think Single Strike might still have some strong usage in this particular format is because the reason Single Strike is horrid in like tournament play where it's like high tier Terra is because you have like Terra Fairy Torn, Terra Fairy Raging Bull. You have all those things running around. Obviously, they're less common in low tier Terra, so you have a bit more strength in the Urshifu pick here, which I can see. Non-Terra Drill, I think, has fallen off a lot this gen. I think it has so many, like, I mean, it it has so many checks that I'm just not particularly impressed by it. But um, outside of those, I do think it is a strong momentum team. The rocker is Diancie or Hippo. Hippo doesn't want to be coming every game, so I guess it's Diancie, but that means it's not going to be an offensive set.
Yeah, Hippo for me
Um,
feels like it's with it being the last pick. I feel like it's more there to boost Drill than it is anything else.
well, that's what I'm saying. So then the main setter is Spikes, Rocks, Diancie. I guess fair enough, but then that's also your Terramon. Oh, is it not Terra Toxtricity? Oh,
It is
wow.
not. They went Terra. So Godbear and I actually talked about this when we first saw the team before the Terras were announced. I thought they
Yeah,
were going to go Toxtricity, Milotic, and Deancy, but instead they went
yeah.
Decidueye, Skeldridge, and Deancy. I can't fault it though because Skeldridge is a really good Terra play, but I thought Toxtricity, just for the offensive pressure, um, would have put in a lot of work.
So here's why I like Terra Toxtricity on this team more than I like the Terra types that he chose, is you have a lot of momentum guys, right? You have a lot of, you have the flip turn Latios, you have the U-turn Scarf Urshifu. And if you're using this team how I expect it to be used, which is, to set up a hazard with Diancie or maybe even Drill. Maybe Drill's not offensively good enough that you're going to want to run rocks on it sometimes, like when Corviknight comes in or whatever. Um, and then you have a lot of pivoting pieces, but you don't really have like a speedy win con, like a Dragon Dancer. But you have that in Toxtricity, and that becomes infinitely more potent when you can Terra into any type, and your opponent doesn't know exactly what Terra type you're committing to.
Oh, I just like
Um,
Toxtricity because I'm very simple and small-brained, and I would just abuse the hell out of amped Terra Normal Boom Burst.
well, no, that's the thing too. I'm not taking that away either. But I'm saying like,
Oh no, I'm just
if,
saying.
if we're if we're if we're talking win conditions on this team, like I think Terra Toxicity would go crazy as a win condition on this team.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
fact they went
like Terra
Diancie and
Diancie is solid because of like the rock polish, but again, you don't have a setter if you're not using it on Diancie. So I mean,
the
I
Terras
get
they
on
went
paper
with.
you have the fucking sand core, but are those really your rockers? Like I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. See, for me,
Um,
them going with these Terras on paper tells me that they're trying to go for more of a defensive core than they were for the offensive. Just because they
no, I don't
wanted.
like that because you already have a good defensive core.
Yeah,
Like why do you need to do that? Also, like Terra Skeledirge is good. Can you do Terra Toxicity plus Terra Skeledirge? Is that
you
allowed?
can't. Oh, so you can. So if you do Terra Skeldridge and you do Terra Toxicity, that means you can't do Terra Diancie.
I think that's fine. I get Terra Diancie's good, but it seems to be more of a stacker here on this type of team than an
Yeah,
offensive piece.
I,
Like
I would
why
agree.
when on this team, what would a team structure on this team look like that is Terra Diancie with rock polish or whatever, and then you keep your defensive pieces? It would be using like Milotic Skeledirge, and then you're like benching Urshifu, or you're benching your Sandcore, or you're benching I don't know. That being said, sorry, I am nitpicking and
You're
being a
you're
little bit
you're
negative
good.
about this team.
I mean, when it comes to this team, I think
Very
that is
strong
a
pivot core, like very strong pivot core. Like I
yeah,
think it's very good. Like
yeah. Momentum.
fast.
They've got six, and then they've got six different momentum mons, all in which rate. Actually more if we include baton pass. We've got more
Yeah.
um, speed ranges to be able to do that. They have some really good offensive options between Urshifu. You've got the Excadrill that kind of works well. They've got some good special attack options between the Latios, Toxtricity,
Mm,
Skeldridge, the Unawaremon. I'm a big
mm,
fan of. They have
yeah.
recovery options between Recover and Slack Off on some of their more bulky mons. So you have potentially Hippowdon as a physical wall, Milotic possibly as a special wall, Latios with Recover. So there's a lot of pros there. I think the biggest thing here for me though is ghost types are just kind of really good into this team.
Yeah, ghost types are pretty good into this team. I'm not
Because
gonna say no.
Urshifu is the only one. So if you've got a
Yeah, it's
Hisuian
not a
Zor,
switch into anything. No, you're
yeah,
absolutely right. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna disagree with that. I do think like, it might be like an AV torn angle or something, depending on the ghost type you're facing. But I think
agreed.
a lot of ghost types offensively that you're gonna face are gonna be like Terra Ghost. So you don't really know for sure if you're facing a ghost type on any given week. Um, Good team though. I mean, I really I think my question with this team is what is your tops? What if you are bringing 6 mons in a given week? What are those 6 mons going to be? Right? You don't want to bring drill without the sand, but you also want to bring hazards, which means you want Diancie. So I guess Hippo's always running rocks if you're bringing drill, but then if you bench the sand core, you don't have certain key resists as well. So you're always gonna have to sort of give up peace here. And then yeah, I really think Terra Toxicity would go crazy on this team. But I'm
Yeah,
being nitpicky. I think
uh,
this team's very strong. You have a lot of other setup options too, and like I guess Swords Dance Urshifu, right? But then
Swords
you have
Dance,
to try to like
Urshifu.
soccer games and stuff. Like you have to be like a budget Bishart, which isn't like incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say on the point of the Terra captains, I agree with you, but I will say this: I think the Toxtricity, in my opinion, is the one that I would prefer and think is the more optimal. But I also don't think it's a huge drop off from what they selected. So it's kind of going from what I think would be a S or an A tier down to like a B tier kind of thing with what they've got. But to your point, I think it's an overlap of responsibility. So I'm really curious to see what kind of teams Mike
Yeah.
is bringing to this, and I'm so excited to get to face them week one.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting team for sure. And you know what? I will say this is what I really liked as well about having so many Terra captains last season. Obviously, I didn't go for that route myself. Is even with the three Terra captains he's chosen, but if you did Terra Milotic or Terra, Toxtricity would be the same thing. Is you have a lot of capacity for very interesting sets. That is really exciting, I think.
Oh, excuse me. Someone is letting me know about the wonderful world of buying viewers, and I'm too cheap for that.
Yeah, don't do that.
All right, on to the seventh pick. We have the London Shockwave, coached by Addy. And this team's first pick was Great Tusk. Thanks again, Play. We all love you for that. Followed by Weavile,
Mm,
Tinkaton, Hisuian Lilligant, Gracelia, Hatterene, Raging Bolt, Ninetales, Vileplume, and Charizard. Terra
mm.
captions being Hisuian Lilligant and Charizard before. So Godbear and I at one point sat down and kind of tried to predict what we thought everyone's Terra captains were going to be. We got majority of
Mm.
them right. I guessed yours wrong. I thought you were going to do Charizard Cresselia, not because Cresselia is better, but I thought you could be far more annoying and painful with it. And I
I
kind
think
of
it was.
expected that to be the direction you would go.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think it was Teraband. I don't think I would have done it anyway, but I think it was Teraband.
Cresselia, oh, is it? I thought it was allowed.
Nah. I may have considered it though. I've just always really wanted to use Terra Hisui and Lilligant. I think it's a very cool mon and
That's fair.
really strong. And that was sort of what the hope with this team was around. Originally, Sun wasn't even the plan, but it kind of just worked out based on how Snipes ended up happening. But
It's a
I
really
really wanted to
good,
use Terra Hisui and Lilligant.
yeah, it's a really good Sun team. I think the only reason that I think this got ranked sixth is there are some things to where on paper there's just kind of missing either checks or missing components to it. But I think that the hyper offense from the Sun and combo of this is just going to be overwhelming.
Yeah, you already know that like I don't really give a shit about like switching into certain things. I'm just gonna literally try and win in like 10 turns, and if I don't, then it's fine. So, I don't know.
Yeah, like honestly, just uh, outside looking in at this, I see this as a extreme threat to deal with. Just because of the sun. I mean, you've got Mons to absolutely capitalize against that between Solar Power, Charizard, Ninetales to set, Great Tusk, Raging Bolt, um, Hisui and Lilligant, so you're not having to run Hustle every week. Um,
Yeah.
it's just absolutely huge. I think the biggest thing is, um, like you said, you're not planning for the long game much, and so you can kind of see that because I think your only momentum mon here is Volt Switch on Raging Bolt, which is blockable.
No, I have 5 momentum mods on this team.
All Baton Pass, or what am I missing?
I don't know. I don't even know if I want to say, but I have 5 momentum mods on this team pretty squarely.
Keep in mind, so with that, if it was something like Memento or anything like that, did not count that into momentum.
Sure. I mean, so it's Healing Wish. I have
Oh,
4
Healing
Healing
Wish,
Wish
yeah.
mods.
If it killed the Mon, I didn't count
Oh.
that.
So the reason I count it for this particular team is because it is so fast paced,
That's
right?
fair.
The reason Sun teams do so well on the ladder is because the ladder is filled with very balancy type strategies. That's a lot of hazard stack and a lot of sort of pivoting around. And Sun disrupts that by going into a Hatterene or using Healing Wish on Ninetales to deny momentum, get momentum in your favor, and bring in an incredibly powerful breaker at the most opportune time. So that is technically momentum that beats momentum, which is really fun. um, but it is not very universally applicable to things outside of incredibly HO, weather teams.
Yeah.
So I get it. And
The,
if there
the
is a week, for example, where weather looks kind of tough, and I want to bring, say, uh, Tusk, Weavile, Tinkaton, Hisui, and Lilligant Raging Bolt without the sun, you're right. I'm going to struggle a bit on the momentum front. So,
yeah,
uh,
because the only thing
it,
that would worry me is if they're able to counter the Sun, it does feel like this team does get. I don't want to say checked, but it definitely takes away a lot of the.
oh no, if this team is Sun, if my opponent beats Sun, they win the game. It's not. That's yeah. Like I'm not gonna
That
dispute
that's why you
that.
got to be scared of that rain
Um,
team. There
oh
that
yeah,
that that that
I'm
drizzle one
terrified of that Rain
is
team.
gonna get you.
I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of convinced Sun beats Rain at this point. But anyway, like
Oh,
I do think like I know I'm fighting. These are fighting words.
fighting words.
Um, I think this is the first gen that it really does. I think it never did beforehand. But because you have all these
Because
fucking
the
photosynthesis
photosynthesis mons.
mons and all this shit, like now it's like I feel like it's very difficult. But
The only reason
yeah,
I
I don't
tend to
know.
like the rain more is because outside of Torkoal, usually your water setters are slower. So if they come in at the same
Mm,
time, their hazard gets up more than just the fact that water just turns neutral against sun as opposed to sun where it just kind of gets absolutely or
yeah, no,
fire.
you're absolutely yeah.
But
I definitely
photosynthesis
agree.
absolutely swings in the other direction and it's busted.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, there's a couple things I'm going to try and prove this season with this team. Is the first thing I'm going to try and prove is that Ninetales is a better Sunsetter than Torkoal.
Ooh,
Um, part of that is some of the things that we mentioned earlier about Healing Wish and utility, so like fast encore. But on top of that, Ninetales is a very strong offensive piece.
it,
Um,
it
I
is. I
always
think the
considered making Ninetales Terra actually because Terra Fire Overheat in the sun is devastating. I mean, it's so strong. But the reason I decided not to do that is because I picked up Charizard, who has even a fucking stronger Terra
solar
Fire
power to
Overheat in the sun.
capitalize on it. I would agree. The only reason I think people tend to go for Torkoal over the Ninetales is I think just because it has more of that bulk aspect, it has
Mhm.
more of that survivability. So when you're having these longer battles,
Yeah,
then it has that. Plus, it has its own spin. So that way, the one thing that's really scary to a lot of the fire setters,
yeah,
rocks, it can get rid of on its
yeah.
own. But if you're going hyper offense, then I would agree with you. I could see Ninetales being a lot
I
better just because of that.
Ninetales works, and even if I'm not trying to go absurdly hyper offense, I have those. I have that removal in Great Tusk, which is the strongest, I would say, removal in the game.
Yep.
I have defensive pieces in Cress and Hatterene, which may look like they have similar purposes, but I don't think that they do. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of where it comes from. So I felt pretty confident with the defensive pieces I had that I didn't feel like Torkoal was necessary on this team. I
Nope.
feel like I rather valued the support. Um,
I
I,
could
I'll
absolutely see it.
I'll leave you with one thing. I'm gonna give you something called a calc test.
Okay.
Finfin. Are you excited for this?
Oh, I'm horrible at tests. I'm in a
Well,
long-term relationship, so I get them daily, and I don't usually pass.
I know I'm very sorry, but I need to do this to you. So, um, Max Bedef Toxapex, incredibly strong mon, right? Like 142 base Bedef, really strong.
Low HP but high speed def. Yeah.
Low HP but high Spadef. Terrifier, Choice Specs, Overheat, Charizard in the Sun. How much damage do you think it's doing to Toxapex?
With solar power.
Yeah,
On the first hit, I am guessing probably maybe 80 to 90 range.
80 to 90 range. The minimum amount of damage that it does to a Max Bedef Toxapex is 86%.
Okay.
And the highest amount it does is 102%.
I feel like I was
That's like
close.
you were pretty close actually. Like I was hoping you would say lower, but ultimately, like I was looking at the calcs for this thing, and it's absurd. It one shot spit up Tinglu from full.
Oh,
So
I could see that.
you know,
The big reason why I probably went on the higher end is one, Daria is one of my closest friends, and if I dare disrespect Charizard, I will never hear the end of it. And
Farsight's great.
oh yeah, it absolutely is. But the other thing is solar power. Solar power with the sun already up really does go strong, and so I've seen a lot of those different sets in doubles and VGC and things like that. And so in my head, it's like, as
Yeah.
someone who's ran those calcs on the flip side of Palafin in the rain and seeing
No, you're absolutely right.
how it
Yeah.
destroys, I can see how other mons like Charizard can do something similar.
The reason I really like Charizard with it though uh is that actually like the Terra aspect of it is crazy. The way the damage modifiers work when you have like Sun Up or you have Rain Up, and you're
It's
clicking
basically a
that
free
Terra
choice
of the
band
same type.
or choice specs.
Um, I think the way it modifies is it's even more than that because if if you take Terra Fire, I mean maybe it is a free choice band
When
and
I've done the calcs,
maybe that's
it's a
correct,
little
but
more like 2 to 4% usually.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's just that damage. It's the same reason why Terra Ninetales is actually as good as it is, because even though it doesn't seem on paper like it has such a high attack stat,
The way I'd usually
you
describe
tear
it
off
is
fire in the sun, it's crazy.
if you're using a stab mon in the weather
Yeah,
with
yeah,
either, or not stab, like if you're using an attack in the weather and you have some sort of attack boosting ability or item, the way I describe it is
yeah,
basically a free sword stance or nasty plot is usually the way it works.
yeah. It's fucking crazy.
It,
Anyway, that's my takeaway.
yes, but
um,
I think hyper offensive is really what it's going to come down to. My only worry is that if this turns into a more long-term battle, there are some
oh, I
things that
lose.
potentially there are
I
some things
lose.
that are going to potentially become an issue. Typing
Yeah, like me
overlap would,
losing. So
yeah.
it's not gonna work.
But I think as long as if I had to make a guess, matches that are 12 turns or less are going to go undefeated on, and matches that go
Yeah.
12 turns or more, I could see you going 50-50 on.
Alright, I'll take that. Well, I'm gonna try to lose no games and keep my record, but we'll see how that goes. I'm
You
going
can do,
to,
Addy, you can win 6-0 every single game. You're still not
yeah,
going to get Goldoa's approval.
I know. I'm never gonna get his approval. I'm letting him stay in my fucking house in June, and I'm still not gonna get his approval. So, anyway,
Oh, but no.
I'm gonna run to the bathroom really quick, but go for it on the next slide.
Okay. We'll get things
I'll come
started as
back.
soon as you come back in. Feel free to jump
Are
and
you
tell
sure?
me how I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
go
Yeah,
for it.
feel free, go for it.
Okay.
All right, up next we have the Venus Weedosaurs. They had the 8th pick. 10th rank is what they ended up getting. Their first pick was an Iron Bundle, followed by Rolling Moon, Landorus, T, um, Bronzong, Blaziken, uh, Regieleki, Enamorus, T, Venusaur, Torkoal, and Braviary. Because this team had no S tier mon, they got 3 Terra options in Venusaur, Braviary, and Enamorus. Right off the bat, I do find it hilarious. Normally, when you have two teams drafting Sun, because of all the weathers, that's probably the most common one I see repeats of. They're normally further apart in the draft. The fact that they were back to back here, I find absolutely funny because normally I feel like there's usually a bigger gap between the two. But we have another Sun team. This team has some really great physical attack threats between the Roaring Moon, the Blaziken, um, Landorus with the base 145, Braviary with 123. So a lot of really good physical attacking mons. They also have special attack threats between Iron Bundle, once again Blaziken, and Namorous. So they have a lot of variety of options of ways that they can go with it. And of course, they have the two fastest mons in the league between Regieleki and Iron Bundle. Those two mons, I actually went and checked everyone's teams. No one's got anything close in terms of that speed, which is going to be interesting. Um, and they do have very scary Sun abusers that what Addy said, trying to prove that Ninetales is better. Torkoal is the one that's on this team. It's a very bulky mon, has a lot of interesting options, but I'm curious to see how it's going to get used. The big knock was there were questions on why is there an iron bundle on a Sun team.
I
I
joined
think,
at the right time. This is great.
oh yeah, no, I'm just starting to go
So,
into some of the things and iron bundle on a Sun team. I'll let you take it from there.
oh. So actually, I think the Sun team is better than my Sun team, and the reason
Interesting.
why is because Iron Bundle has this secret, uh, secret like move or secret to it, where it can actually just shoot fire out of its like laser cannon thing, and yeah, no one knows about it, but this team knows the secret. So we're going to see some very strong sun boosted hydro pumps this season.
The Hydro Steam. Honestly,
Yeah, Hydro
I
Steam Iron Bundle is on this team. Yeah,
that so that was the one thing I told Boyd. Like I feel like dropping bundle for Wake feels like a natural slide
yeah, and then you
in.
can Terra. Oh, yeah, easily. Yeah, you should absolutely do that. Why
Yeah.
has he not done that? Oh my god.
He's waiting for some potential trades, but because we passed the first deadline, it's locked in. I don't know what long term plays. Part of the confusion, um,
Am I
Boyd
playing
did
this
fully
team?
call out
I want to see
is
like
the
Sun versus.
intention. Boyd had the original intention of using utility umbrella a number of times this year, and we kind of had a chat wide discussion around the fact that utility umbrella is a defensive item. It
Yeah,
changes
it
the
doesn't even
calc
work.
based off the person getting hit, not the person doing the hitting.
Also, like, why are you drafting Iron Bundle just to nerf it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
So
sorry.
that is
I
the
don't know.
biggest downside I would say is it your your number one pick, your top mon completely contradicts with, the rest of your team essentially.
Can I make a fun little suggestion as well for this team?
Go for it.
I think they should Terra the Torkoal. I think to me the issues and reasons I don't choose Torkoal is because even though it's a more defensive piece, it's a fucking fire type, which is like a terrible defensive typing.
Yeah.
So if like you could like Terra Ghost the Torkoal, right? Spin block things and find more ins against hazards. Could be quite effective actually. And I've seen a lot of games where just having a Terra on Torkoal can be really devastating because if something tries to like click EQ to try and kill it, and you terrestrialize and then just kind of you know
The- I also
eat
love
the
it because
EQ and kill something back, like it can completely flip the game on its head. So
I
I
would
don't know.
also love it for them just to lead Terrifier Torkoal, click an overheat with a jetpack just to get the sun going right off the bat. I
Oh yeah, and like we
I want to
talked
see
about, those
that.
hits are absurd. So yeah, no, I think it'd be very strong personally. So yeah, I don't know. That's an idea.
Yeah. The other thing is that the hazard removal and setting is kind of limited with this team. They do have a number of different setters, but both their removals are two spinners.
And they're
And
bad.
yeah, I mean Regieleki, if you're using without Terra, Regieleki has really just become one dimensional. If you have a solid ground type on the other team, Regieleki is just walled every time.
Now, what if Reggie Lucky got Weather Ball? Now that
Does it? I don't recall. I
it
could be
doesn't. It doesn't get it. No,
okay.
I'm
You're
kidding.
like, did you just open up something new for me?
No, it didn't. No, it's I think I've always thought Reggie Lucky is really bad, personally. So I think it's a pretty bad remover. It's
Yep.
pretty bad mon
Oh,
in
and I take it
general.
back.
It's not like you
Braviary
need
does
the
get
speed,
defog. I
like
forgot about because
mid.
that was Braviary was an ad drop, so that
Oh
wasn't on the
shit, yeah,
initial
it does, it
notes.
does. Yeah,
Yeah,
actually Braviary's good.
yeah, Braviary is good. That
This
one
game.
wasn't on the
What's wrong with this
original
game?
because that Braviary was an ad drop they had partway through.
Yeah. I really like this team. It's pretty good. Oh wait, there's an iron bundle. Yeah, I don't know. It
I'll,
could be like
I'll be
it could be
honest.
alright.
I feel like this team would have gone so much higher in the rankings if it had Walking Wake instead of Iron Bundle.
I think this team might be higher than mine in the rankings if it had fucking walking wake instead of a bundle. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I
Put a wake on there.
but um
I like how bundles in the middle. just like
yeah.
just like
Well,
is the
the way I
star of
tried
the
to do it
team.
is whatever the first pick was, it was going to
Yeah.
be the big mon in the center as like the primary focus.
Sure. It's just so awkward. Like
It is. It feels like it's being
it's like you made a
ostracized by
mistake
the
on the
rest of the
slide or
team.
something. Yeah, it's like you made a mistake in the graphic or something.
Yeah. But
Um
but things that
anyway.
are a little worrying is this team has a phobia of rocks. Bronzong is the only rock resist. They have four weaknesses,
Mm,
so if stealth rocks are up and you're not running boots, can be a pain. And you know, a strong rock type mon might be able to just kind of put in some work. So rock is a big weakness on this team that will have to be played around. But again, with Sun teams, you tend to be more hyper offensive, so you're not as worried about throwing in the
I don't know.
occasional sack.
Name a single rock type that was drafted.
Iron Boulder,
All right, name a second rock type that was drafted besides
Lycan
Iron
Rock.
Bolt. Was like a rock drafted?
I thought it was. He was either in one of the discussions to get taken, but I'm pretty sure it did.
Let's
But
see.
outside
Like,
that, you do have My Glamora. Lycanroc was taken by the Cellular Ledges.
all
Then
right.
you've got
Well, you got two scary matchups. That's pretty bad. that's pretty bad. But like, walking wake. Hi.
yeah. I think this team has a lot of really good potential. It just feels like it's kind of battling itself.
There's a
So
there's a couple mons that don't really make a ton of sense on there, but it's got some proven cores. Like I mean
yeah,
the Torkoal, the Lando, the Roaring Moon, the Venusaur, even the Bronzong and Braviary, all pretty proven. I
I,
think maybe like Enam can be something different. I don't really know what it
I'm
adds.
really curious to see the Bronzong. Um,
Bronzong's weirdly effective on Sun teams, but it also like needs to run Hypnosis in order to like not be a total momentum suck. So I
Well,
don't
one
know.
of the things I think is interesting here is Bronzong on this team can actually run, in my opinion, heat proof a number of times instead of having to be levitate all the time because of the amount of
Yeah, it
fly
depends what you're
zones they have.
facing. But yeah, yeah. Certain
So,
matchups for sure.
but no, it's interesting. I don't know how many more times we can basically say that the big note on this is just gonna be a question of the iron bundle's use on the team. That's what this comes down to.
Iron Riddle's like, man, I don't know how I got here. Like his eyes are just like, stunned. He's like, I don't really get it.
But no, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Up
Yeah.
next, we have the San Diego Pachirisus with the ninth overall pick.
Mm.
Um, they were rated as 12th. Their first pick was the Urshifu Rapid Strike, followed by Gliscor, Iron Crown, Blastoise, Terra Talonflame, Mimikyu, Hisui and Goldra, Terra Okidogi. I feel so weird every time I say that name.
Mm.
Terra Galvantula, and then Hisui and Samurott. Notably, this
Mm.
team only has one A type, there or A tier. There is no S tier, and there is no second A tier.
Yeah, I don't really understand what this team does, to be honest. Like I think the team, I guess, is Hazards plus Spin Block with Mimikyu. Is that like the concept here?
Yeah, it,
Um
it feels like it needs webs and other hazards up, and then Mimikyu is
mm,
just kind of the come in here, potentially sit. But one of the big things that just jumps out to me when I look at the team, because I've got over on my other sheet, it's got all the different stats of the attack, defense, special attack, all that fun stuff.
yeah.
Outside of Talonflame, almost outside of Talonflame and Gudra, almost all of this team's speed tiers are within 20 points of each other.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, so Hisuian Samurai 85, Urshifu Rapid 97, Gliscor 95, Blastoise 78, Iron Crown 98, Mimikyu 96, Okidogi 80.
Yeah. I think this is a team where that actually matters. Like I know I was downplaying speed tiers earlier, but to me, when you think about speed tiers, what you want to make sure that you have a really strong Mon that is a speedy Revenger, and you want to make sure that you have, a breaker as well that's like decently fast, right? Um, I guess there's some breakers here that are decently fast, like Okidogi and I guess maybe Iron Crown, depending on the matchup. But the Revenger's Talonflame, and that feels kind of bad. I'm not gonna lie. Like it, it doesn't really do
Tal-
well as a Revenger because it's pressed into a certain item, which is boots, and that's kind of it. I don't know.
yeah, they do have a lot of mons that can utilize Scarf relatively well here between the Urshifu, the Hisuian Samurai, those ones are fairly solid. Um,
Yeah,
the Iron Crown also, but it's just in general, it feels like you have so many that are kind of filling a similar role or overlap to where if webs aren't up, I just don't know if they'll have enough speed to kind of push
yeah,
through. This is Rotom.
yeah. I mean, what does this team do against like a +1 Mew? Like Shadow Sneak Mimikyu? Is that it? Is that what they do?
Gale Wings Braviary.
Yeah, it's gonna do nothing. It's gonna do very little. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
there is a good chunk of bulk and defensive core on this team between the Blastoise, the Hisuian Gudra, Gliscor on the physical side. But the other thing that kind of worries me is there's not a whole lot of pressure on the special attack sides. You have Iron Crown, but Talonflame doesn't really get a setup, and it's not doing an absolute ton. Galvantula
yeah,
is kind of in the same boat, not with a lot of setup. Hisui and Gudra's got a decent special attack stat of 110, but I don't think it gets any setup moves. So it's really just kind of Shell Smash Blastoise, maybe a Hydro Pump Samurott, but you're primarily relying on Iron Crown.
yeah. No, that makes sense. I don't have a ton of great things to say about the team. I also just think that like the defensive pieces don't have really like reliable recovery, right?
Yeah,
So you don't have a lot of ones with like Roost or like things like that. So um it doesn't have the greatest offensive presence. I don't think it has the greatest defensive presence. It's very reliant on getting hazards up, which means uh Mimikyu's gonna have to come very often, which is not like the greatest spawn in the world. Um I guess like Terra Ghost Okidogi could be scary. I
yeah.
don't know.
I
Maybe
do
they'll be
like so they
surprised.
did drop Muck for Okidogi and made Okidogi a Terra Captain. I really do like that. I think Okidogi as a Terra option.
Broken Terra Captain, that's really strong, yeah.
Yeah, I think that as a Terra option is really strong. I'm curious about the Talonflame just because it does get Swords Dance. It doesn't have the greatest attack stat, but with its speed, it would be interesting to see, maybe a Terra Ground Swords Dance or something like that kind of put in work. But yeah, this feels like it's a hazard primary team. But the one thing that I don't love is they do have Mimikyu as a spin blocker, but they don't really have a way to punish a defog mon if they're going to go for hazards heavy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, but I think that's enough. We can jump into um, the next team, the Town Paladins, coached by myself. 10th pick, ranked 7th. Team in order consists of Iron Treads, Annihilate, Terra Gyarados, Glamora, Incineroar, Alola Florges, Terra Kilowattrel, Terra Ambipom, and then Mew. No S tier, so those three Terra options
Hmm.
um, come into play. And I'll just kind of say what I think my team's biggest strength is. I feel like my team revolves around hazards, basically. I've got some solid hazard setup, really good Punisher Mon, some good momentum Mons, and recovery to kind of pass and go around. That I think is probably the strength, but I even on my own team, I
No,
think there's a number of weaknesses.
I agree actually, and the point you left out as well is you have the, I think the best spin blocker in the game in that Annihilate as well,
Yeah.
and Defog Punisher, right, because of Defiant. So
Yep.
yeah, very very strong team. I think seven's underrated for you actually. Yeah, competitive too actually. Defog's really punished here. Yeah, so I think there's a few weird pieces on the team, but not weird in like a capacity that I think is, weirder than any other team here. Like I think Incineroar is like kind of meh. I think Ambipom is like, kind of meh, although I told you some kind of fun secrets about Ambipom, which is cool. Um
I've had a lot of fun with
I
Ambipom. I think Technician Fake Out,
yeah,
it can just be
yeah, it could
fun,
be
but
good. It could be good. Yeah, and knockoff obviously support on a team like this is nice to, get rid of boots and things. I think Mew is obviously a very good hazard setter, but you've done it justice by pairing it with Glamora. And the reason that is it's not forced into a hazard setting role, so you can run sort of Dragon Dance with full coverage on it and still have that hazard stacking prowess with Glamora. But then you also have Gyarados as well, which can be that sort of setup threat. So I really like the Alamola plus Annihilate combination because you have Healing Wish as well as just Wish into it in general. I know I see that first bullet point on cons saying, oh, where's your SPDF options? And I know you're not including this, but I think it's wrong not to include this because you have two of arguably the best AV users in the entire game in Almamola and Annihilate. So I really wouldn't be worried about special attackers.
nope,
Um,
that's absolutely fair. It again, like
yeah,
Vest can put in some work. It's just more of a matter of if your Mon's having to bring the same item every time, that kind of limits the options with it, and that was just more the thought
true,
process.
but the reason that Alma has gained so much traction is because it can check special attackers like so fucking
It
easily by
I
just
have found it
running
to be
AV
the
flip turn.
best
It's
Chi Yu answer in the game.
I mean, it's got to be the best Chi answer in the game. And it's got to be the best answer to a lot of things. I mean, that fucking Joe's team. Like, sorry if I'm spoiling anything here, but if you're facing Joe, like, and AV Almola exists, like, you just wall that entire team. So, like, I don't
Write that
know.
down. Write that
So
down.
write that down. Like, yeah, it's just really, really strong Spadafamon because of its high HP. Yeah, I get why Incineroar's here. I guess I don't really like Incineroar as a mon, but I think the rest of the team is very
Y-
strong, and you have some very good pivoters. I like Terra Kilowattrel when I used it. Pretty much never had a bad matchup. It's a
I
very strong fast mon.
I have been slowly becoming a big fan of that Mon since around the time you used it because obviously it put in some work, but also just I think the tiering has balanced out with a little more to where more leagues are allowing it to either Terra or have it be at a decent price point kind of thing, and
Yeah,
having used it in a couple Nuzlocks, like its speed tier being able to Terra is really good, and then like you mentioned,
that's great.
competitive is another really good way to punish defog, especially since a lot of defog mons are flying, so it could potentially be a safe swap in with Roost.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I agree. And I think as well, like it is just such a decently offensive powerhouse. Like the only things that really check it effectively are opposing electric types, of which there are not many, and you obviously still have the option for Terra Grounds, but then you can also just pivot into fucking treads and like, just force them out because they can't touch you. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think your team's actually quite good. I think if there's any room for improvement, it might be like if you start struggling, the first thing I would look at is I would look at the Incineroar, Ambipom, and Florges. But like
Yeah.
I think your top seven is very tried and true, very
The
strong. Yep,
Incineroar is
I think
mainly here
gloves.
for me because outside of Iron Treads and then Mew, which is base 100, there are some potential weaknesses in terms of the physical defense. And so having the Intimidate option while not forcing Gyarados into that by allowing Gyarados to occasionally have Moxie feels nice. And then just I needed a fire type, I needed a dark type, and lo and behold, there was a combination.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, no, I understand needing the dark type. Alan Wall is such a good physical wall, though. I think
it
in
it
a
really
way,
is.
yes. I guess what I'm saying is like it might be interesting to look into a more offensive dark type if you find that you're not forcing progress fast enough. But
Yeah,
I don't know if it's
I may
fully
absolutely
possible.
have to do that. The one thing
Yeah.
I also do like is having a parting shot mon. I feel like can also just
Mm, yeah.
really put in work. And so that's the other thing that kind of slowed me. It's like, you know what? Worst case scenario, intimidate, parting shot. I can go into say a Gyarados, get a Dragon Dance off with Moxie and just sweep or something.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Plus, again, knocking off those boots is gonna be quite good. I'm just an Incineroar hater. You might do well with it. So,
I have never used
um,
it. I this is a number of these mons are going to be new experiences for me. I have never
it
used
is
a
it is
Alomomold.
quite literally my least favorite Pokemon of all existence. So I even if it was the most optimal pick, I would never draft it. But like I get it. I get it on paper. I
Yeah.
think what's a shame is I actually really do like the Ambipom. What I struggle to wonder about the Ambipom on your team is when are you ever gonna bring the Ambipom over the Kilowattrel as your speedster? Um,
Oh, I
is
can already tell you there's a
something I'm curious
few
about.
teams I've already got it planned for.
All right, well then I'm gonna trust you then.
But you know it. So one of the things that I love running is on occasion. Godbear once showed this to me, but basically just running fake out last resort if they don't have a solid um, normal check can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But no, overall, I've got some things that I think this team can put in work, but I also think that this is a team that if it's not piloted well, it can absolutely kind of crumble in on itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one.
So, but sweet. Well, we've only got two more teams to take a look at. Up next is the 11th pick in the Atlanta Talonflames. This is coached by Talon, and their first pick was the Greninja, followed by Sneasler, Metagross, Rillaboom, Entei, which is Terra, Terra Hoopa Unbound, Galarian Weezing, Sandy Shocks, Terra Meloetta, and finally Cryogonal to round out the team. Again, this is a three Terra team because they did not take an S tier mon. I was kind of surprised, as a quick side note, 12 teams, we had a total of 9 S tier mons.
Mm.
Only two weren't taken. I was kind of surprised. I somewhat thought that there wouldn't be as many taken just because of the availability of mons in A tier.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like I know you all had some interest in expanding the S tiers a bit, but the reality is that a lot of the mons in S tier just aren't S tiers. I actually argue the two S tiers that weren't taken in Dio Speed and Gouging are probably A tiers in my opinion.
I
But
can see that.
um, yeah, I think that's just the reality behind the board. Is that there's not when you don't have high tier Terra, there's not going to be a lot of S tier level Mons, so it's going to make more sense to kind of front load your Terras at the bottom half. Um, as for this team, it's an interesting one. I think Terra Hoopa is broken. I actually kind of overlooked it on the tier list. I kind of forgot that it was possible. I used Hoopa actually in season 10. And Hoopa's biggest issue for me was that it pretty much can only hold two items viably because of its typing and because of its speed stat. And to me, that is Choice Scarf and Costat Berry. Um, that being said, Terra allows you to sort of fix its defensive holes and maybe run other items. Or it allows you to be Scarf and not sacrifice power as much because you just run like Terra Dark, fucking Hyperspace Fury, and also be Choice Scarfed and be fast and powerful. So I think it's a very, very strong Terra.
I think of all
Um,
the Terramons we've seen, is probably the scariest Terramon, just
it's
because
probably the scariest Terramon that was drafted, yeah.
base 160
Um,
attack and base 170 special attack is just insane.
I gotta say, I think the Rillaboom Sneasler core is a little outdated. I think that's very like 2024 type shit. Like Sneasler's best set, in my opinion, are like Band and Scarf and stuff like that. I think the Unburden shit is not crazy. Um, especially because you already have Gren as your sort of late game battle bond sweeper, right? So why do you have two sort of late game speedsters? I think
Can I throw my
so.
hot
I
take
don't know.
out real quick?
Yeah,
I think this team could be interesting and catch people off guard if they didn't have
yeah.
Rillaboom, because you then say, okay, I'm expecting now Sneasler to be banded, be scarfed, whatever. I could
Yeah.
absolutely see them getting sneaky one week and bringing Misty Surge, Galarian Weezing to catch folks off guard.
That'd be pretty funny for sure. But I mean, once I see Misty Seed Galarian Weezing, I'd be like, all right, I know what's happening here. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't
It's
be,
a question of, do you have the
you
prep to
know.
stop it?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, is there a fundamental difference between the two? I'm not entirely sure. Oh, you mean like with literally no Rillaboom on the team? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I actually I would say yeah. Then yes, you're right because then that gives you a flexible option without it being sort of mandatory. Um, yeah, and I'm not a big fan of Sandy Shocks. I think Sandy Shocks is kind of bad personally, but I think this team has some threats. Like I think Gren's fucking broken, and I think so is Hoopa. So I can't say too many bad things about it. Um, like Weezing's a bit of a momentum suck. Otherwise, otherwise pretty strong momentum options. And strong
Uh,
breaking options in Entei and Hoopa. So
so
um,
be, be,
yeah.
if team is wanting to do the unburdened strats, I don't love the combination of Galarian, Weezing, and Sneeze. They're just from a Weezing, you don't want to be your grounded poison type. You want to run that levitate, and you don't want Sneasler coming in too early, kind of thing. Um,
I think if he's using the team as an unburdened team, he's using the team wrong though. Like that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. Is
yeah,
that I think
that's kind
like
of where I'm agreeing. Is like I don't like that combination. Like if you're using it primarily as like a choice band item to where it's coming in momentum, then I think that's perfectly fine. Um,
I think this is a team where you're gonna want to just pivot around with say Sneasler, I guess Rillaboom is now a pivot. Maybe Sandy Shocks, even like use sort of rocks explosion momentum with Metagross. Does Meloetta get U-turn? Maybe U-turn AD
Meloetta does.
Meloetta be really strong here. So yeah, using a lot of momentum, getting up uh, some hazards with I guess Sandy Shocks. I think Sandy Shocks is so fucking bad. Sandy Shocks
Sandy
and
Shocks
maybe
needs
like
Terra, in my opinion, just because its two typings can get walled
it's
easily.
it's it's so, or just any ground type with an air balloon like GG. And then yeah, but I think the point is you set hazards up, you pivot around, you go into your really strong Hoopa, you break them on, you go back into the pivot, you pivot around. Yeah, I think that's the right way to use the team. If you're trying to orient towards some sort of unburdened win con, I don't think it's very good. I think Battle Bond as well is sorely misunderstood because the idea with Battle Bond isn't just to like win in the end game, although you obviously have very strong snowball potential. The point with Battle Bond is that you can kill something and then get a huge hit off on something else, or you can just snowball if the conditions are right.
See, for
Like
me,
I've seen situations where like I've killed something and then the opponent's gone like Corviknight and then I clicked like Hydro Cannon at +1 and killed the Corviknight when they thought that they could like take the hit and U-turn. So then I get 2 kills for the cost of 1. So
see, Battlebond has always
Battlebond
been
has a lot of
interesting.
versatility.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes it interesting for me is the idea that, hey, I now know this isn't a Proteomon. I have to be really careful. So when a Greninja is coming out, it essentially is forcing a swap out and forcing your opponent's hand kind of thing. So you're just getting that free damage
Yeah,
essentially.
your opponent's scared to let you have a kill, so that changes things too. You're absolutely right. I also think the other discovery with Greninja that's become more and more popular over the years is Swords Dance Greninja.
Mm.
Swords Dance Greninja is incredibly strong mon, and with Gunk Shot, Liquidation, even like Shadow Sneak and stuff like that, been really good. And then the other set that's been going crazy as well that I never knew existed until some people started innovating with Greninja is Choice Banded Greninja. Goes absolutely insane with Protean. Um, not just because of U-turn, not just because of Shadow Sneak, but because of Retaliate, which is a new move it got, which is you get to become a normal type, 140 base power, click Choice Banded, Retaliate
It's
right
the
after
ultimate
it
revenge
dies,
play.
and literally kill something. Like there's some teams that just have no normal resist, and you can really take advantage of it. So, Gren has a lot of versatility as a breaker.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it all gets played out. I'm curious if this team ends up making any transactions over the next few weeks, but
What's that?
um,
No, yeah, I think like I think this team could benefit with some transactions for sure. Like I think I I would I don't know what the right answer is, but I would be curious how this team can be improved with a different ground type and potentially only having one of Weezing and Rillaboom, and then maybe having another momentum piece. I'm not sure. Yeah.
No, it'll be interesting to see, but Talon brings a lot of really fun sets, so I'm really curious to see how they end up utilizing this. Because there have been some times where like, oh, this feels like the most obvious play, and Talon brings some interesting sets that I wouldn't have on there. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but that's kind of the fun of it, is getting to experiment and try different unusual things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But we are down to the last team. We have the Canadian Sailor the 12th pick, ranked 6th. Their team consists of first overall pick Darkrai, followed by Goldango, Cyclizar, Galarian, Slowking, Rotom Wash, Ursaluna, Chestnut, Lycanroc, Granbull, and Glastier. The Terra captains being um, the Glastier and actually, you might be right. It would have been there was a flip based off the last survey that came in, so this one might actually be fifth.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, I try to keep it open as long as possible so everyone's votes would be equally counted.
So you're saying mine was fifth, and then this one overtook me.
I believe so. Yes.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. All right, time to shit on this team. No, it's
Oh, so I'll be honest right off the bat. This is a team. Godbear didn't give rankings, but he and I discussed this one and debated because on paper when I looked at this, I was not a huge fan. And
hmm.
the only reason for that for me is just because I feel like you have Goldango. Where are the
Hmm.
hazards?
I absolutely agree. There's no hazards on this team. There's not a single hazard setter, in my opinion.
Yeah, the one that they have is Chestnut, I believe, is the one that was said.
Yeah, that's not a hazard setter. Because Terra Chestnut wants to be like Iron Defense Body Press. It wants to be like, Belly Drum sets. It wants to, utilize some offensive prowess. So,
Yeah,
also, if you're bringing Chestnut plus Glacier, then what the fuck are you benching? So, yeah, Ursaluna should probably become a hazard setter if there's one that exists. Or, yeah, maybe potentially trading out Lycanroc for something else. You don't necessarily need that speed tier. So,
yeah. Lycanroc does
I'm
get Stealth Rocks.
yeah, but that's not fucking. Go draft a fucking golem then, if you want, like,
Yeah,
stealth rock plus
and
focus
Granbull
sash. You
does
know what I
not get
mean?
Stealth
Like,
Rocks, Joe.
so yeah, this team has no hazard setter.
Yeah, I mean, you say T Specs. What mon's the T Specs here? Is that Slowking?
It's Slowking, but again, T-Spikes is the one hazard that Goldango can't stop
Yeah.
opponents from taking off. So I don't know.
Yeah, so that was my biggest thing is I feel like Goldango as a hazard blocker. Now, don't get me wrong, there are still a lot of amazing things that Goldango as a mon can do, but it feels like one of its better plays in terms of blocking hazards is
It's also like you have a. This team is a very good sort of hazard team if there were hazards on the team because you not only have Goldango to block hazards, but you have one of the better spinners in the game in Cyclizar as well.
yeah.
So, like, I feel like you really want to just trade out Lycanroc for a more reliable rocker and maybe even Ursaluna as well.
Yeah, that was my big knock. But there are a lot of upsides that this team does have. They have some great physical offensive pressures between Glastier, Ursaluna. I hate saying it, but Granbull technically has a decent high attack stat. I'm a Granbull hater.
Ooh. Choice banded Granbull is about to sweep the TBL by storm, I'm sure. So no, I don't agree with that. That it's a strong offensive piece. Like yeah, it's
Yeah.
not good.
You do
Um,
have a really interesting core between Goldango and Darkrai. This is something that was pointed out to me that I do think is interesting, is that Goldango as a potential swap in for Darkrai is actually a really interesting or good pairing just because it covers a lot of where Darkrai were to be weak. With immunity to fighting, resist to fairy, quad resist to bug. So Goldango can support Darkrai and allow Darkrai to really just kind of maybe be a Spexmon, come in, click Dark Pulse, and then something comes in, and Goldango can potentially swap in and have solid recovery for it.
yeah, that makes sense.
Um, but I also do think that we are going to see Trick Room a number of times out of this team.
Interesting. What with Glow King?
I think so. I think when you just look at their speed, they have a lot of the floor mons. Like when we talk about their heavy hitting mons again, the Ursaluna, the Granbull, the Chestnut, the Glacier, they're all on the lower end of the speed tier. So it feels like getting
I
them
mean, those
in.
are, yeah, I see the Trick Room mode, but also they have so many speedsters. Like they have Psychozar, Darkrai, Lycanroc. Like, you know what
Yeah,
I don't disagree that Trick Room might be a component, but I don't think it's necessary. Like,
it feels like it's a kind of a they can bring either mode kind of thing depending on the week. Because yeah, they've got the
yeah.
Goldango, they've got the Cyclozar, they've got the Lycanroc. Um, so it'll absolutely be interesting to see. I do like though Glow King Chili Reception into Glacier. I do think that's a good bit of synergy between those two.
Oh yeah, last year is fucking broken. I get it.
So Glacier as a Terra Captain, I think is really interesting. I don't know how I feel about it being comboed with um, Chestnut, just because they both feel like physical attacking mons on the slower end with some decent physical bulk. So it feels kind of
Yeah, I
like a
think for Terramons, for me, like if you're doing a more balanced team, you want to have one more defensive Terra and one more offensive one. I guess Glastrier is an offensive Terra, but yeah, they're both slow, like you said. So I don't know.
but it'll be absolutely interesting. I think that this team just has some really strong hitters, has some good revenge options, some good scarf options, good recovery between recover on Darkrai. I don't know enough about Granbull, so I'm going to apologize now. I need to check. Does it get Wish because it's a fairy type, or does it not because the game
No, it
hates
doesn't.
Granbull? Okay, good. So my hate is being validated more and more.
Yeah.
It does get Intimidate though, which is one of the best abilities in the game. Um, and Quick Feet as an ability would be interesting if it wasn't base 45 speed. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
but yeah, all in all, interesting team. Curious to see how it'll end up getting stacked up. But yeah, this is one that I've really liked using Goldango, so I voted this one a little bit lower just because it didn't have the hazards, but I was overruled a bit. But I also do see where there's versatility with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, before we go into the schedule, any final thoughts or anything you want to cover?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, I'm a little negative Nelly, so just
Nah,
if I went into like a criticism, it wasn't because I think the team is bad. It's just because I it's easier to pinpoint bad sides than good sides for me.
I feel like you've
But
been more
no, it's
positive than I've been
really
today.
really all right. Well, fair enough. I yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how all these teams perform. Yeah,
I'm really interested because some of these teams, I'm ready to get proven wrong, if that makes sense. Like, hey, there are some weaknesses or gaps that I can see, and there are other things where I think, hey, this could be busted. I'm ready to get proven wrong and be like, you know what? That's a way of using that mon or using that combination that I didn't see before. And that to me is what makes these leagues so fun over the years, is because the teams that are drafted now are so different than
mm,
just a year ago because of how much the game changes without having to actually change the game.
yeah, I agree.
So,
Absolutely. Cool. All
but
right, shall we get into the schedule?
yep. So this is just for the upcoming week. This has been posted by the commissioner in the channel, but first week is the New York Empoleon taking the Venus Venusaur, and then Boston Red Rocks taking on the Atlanta Talonflame. Those are the Violet side matchups. On the Scarlet side, we have the Chicago Phalanx taking on the Atlanta Victory Stars, and the Roman Empoleons taking on the Canadian Ceruledges. But we do have two crossover games as well. Both Addy and myself are involved in those. The London Shockwave are taking on the San Diego Pachirisus, and my Palatown Paladins are taking on the Virginia Victinis. And so there's going to be some interesting matchups right off the bat. I know you probably might not remember all the different teams and their setups, but are there any of these matchups that jump out as interesting to you?
I'd say the crossover games are probably the most interesting ones. Like, the only reason I think my game is interesting because I like the fact that it's Battle of the Electric Rodent mascots. But I think the reason your matchup is really interesting is because I see you as a very sort of TBL staple, and I don't know if Mike identifies as that, but Mike is someone who I've definitely seen thrive in various different scenes and platforms in the sort of competitive Mons sphere. I think you both have very interesting, sort of hazard centric, balancy teams. and I'm really interested to see how that game plays out. And then yeah, I don't know. I'm also really interested to see how Aaron uses this Ogerpon Teal team again. I think it was probably the strangest pick of round one, but the team ended up being pretty decent in the end. So to see how he ends up using that Ogerpon is going to be something I'm quite fascinated in. And then I suppose the last one is seeing if Iron Bundle fucking Sun is going to pay off at all. That's Goldoa's team, right? So
No, that one's Joe's.
oh, that's when Joe is playing. Okay, well then fair enough. So
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I thought you were saying that was Gold's team. No, Venus Venusaur, that is the Iron Bundle team. I thought you were saying that the Iron Bundle was
yeah,
Goldoa's team.
sorry. I should have been better. No. Thank God. No. It like yeah.
There
So
would have
it'll
been
be
a lot
interesting
more
to
roasting
see
going on if it was Gold's.
I'm very curious to see if the Iron Bundle and Torkoal come to the same game. That is what I'm curious about.
Yeah, and correction, it's Void's team that is the Iron Bundle. I was looking at the Regirock's team on my page, and so I said Joe's name in air. That is Void's team that has Bundle in the Sun. But I agree with you. I think the matchup I'm most curious about is the Roman Polions taking on the Canadian Terror Ledges, because I feel like those are two teams that are ready to prove me wrong. Because again, Roman Polions, they have what feels like a rain team, but it's not rain, and so I'm curious to see how that gets utilized. On the flip side, I feel like the Terror Ledges have a hazard team that doesn't have hazard, so I'm ready to get proven wrong there. And so I think that's gonna be the one that I keep an eye out for, just because it feels like I see the teams, I see how I see them, but I want to see how the coaches use them, because I think that's 90% of the battle is teams or whatever. How do the coaches use them is the bigger part of the story.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, no, I'm excited for this year. It's going to be a good one. Again, we are going to be live streaming all of these. Some of the matches have already been scheduled, so as we get confirmation, I will be posting in the general TBL schedule release what timelines we are looking at. But yeah, any final words of wisdom before we wrap up the stream?
Sun Hyper offense is gonna take the TBL by storm, and that's all I have to say.
I think it's going to be interesting. I, I will say, last year's rankings came back, and we were like, I want to say 80% of all the teams were within one spot on the final standings compared to where they were ranked.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of nuts. Like I think the only one that was a miss was, I think Goldoa's team last year got ranked number 1 and they finished like 6th in the final standings. But then they went on to win it in the postseason, so kind of balanced out
Yeah,
a
no,
bit.
fair.
But no,
Did Goldoa win last season?
Goldoa won last season.
Oh, okay, we're gonna have to change that. Yeah, the only other thing would be like, yeah, let's expose maybe this panel of experts. Like, who are we talking about here?
They are folks who are not in the TBL at all.
Well, I get that. I still want to expose them.
We're gonna get
Anyone?
that risque expose going on. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I like it. I don't agree with a lot of their opinions, but I like going to them because at the very least, I have a baseline where none of it's personal.
Okay, no, fair enough. Okay, well, fair enough. Yeah, I'm excited to see these games. Do you know what the first game that's going to happen is? Is that
currently scheduled? The first one is myself versus the Virginia Victinis. That one, I believe, is currently scheduled for this Wednesday.
Well, that's going to be a very fun one, because I think I'm going to tune into that.
Oh yeah, which reminds me, if any of you are casters, the schedules are up, so please feel free to go volunteer if you are able to do any of the games, and we will do our best to try and get some different voices on it. One last thing I actually just remembered that I want to throw out there. One of the goals that Goldo and I have is we want to, similar to last year, do a weekly recap at the end of every week. But one of the things is we're going to do a more in-depth dive to it, partially because the videos are going to be on YouTube, but also partially because we want to kind of get to introduce the community a little bit more. So we're going to be asking for volunteers who might be open to getting interviewed about their match on stream, or who might be willing to, just kind of provide some commentary and things like that. So be on the lookout as we do ask for volunteers, because one of the things that we want to do is since coaches are sending a full paste of their teams to the commentators, we are actually going to be able to see and kind of look over that and say, hey, here are the full sets, here are our thoughts, and kind of get to break down that more. So we'll be able to do more of a recap than in the past in terms of just saying, oh, it was a 6-0, it was a 3-0. And we want to do interviews as part of that. So it should be fun. So be on the lookout for that. But if not, Addie, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And folks, we appreciate you all tuning in. It's been a pleasure as always. Let's have some fun this season. I'm excited for it, and we will see you all in the next one. Take care, everyone.
Ooh.